Didn't mean to jump there. Good morning. The committee will come to order. First off, I want to welcome our witnesses to today's hearing. Today, we will recognize the positive impact the veterans community continues to have on the United States economy, which is a fitting tribute, as just last week we celebrated National Veterans-Owned Small Business Week. Now, our veterans have sacrificed for the protection of this great nation by serving in uniform, and we owe them and their families a debt that we can never fully repay. But we, as a nation, can put meaning behind thank you for your service by doing our part to ensure that veterans have access to the American dream after they hang up their uniforms, which is exactly what we will be discussing today. The purpose of this hearing is to acknowledge the important role American businesses and veteran-owned small businesses have in empowering veterans and creating economic opportunity. Thousands of companies, both big and small, have had great success in hiring veterans over the past decade. As most of you know, before I came to Congress, I ran a family-owned trucking business. During that time, I had the pleasure of knowing as a young man, even my father and grandfather, we hired people from the Second World War, that worked for us for most of their lives, from Korea that worked for us for most of their lives, Vietnam that worked most of their lives, and we would continue that, my brother continued that tradition today. And when we had veterans apply for the positions, let me tell you, our company, I always made sure to give them the opportunity to thrive, as did my grandfather and father. Because as a veteran myself, I knew the servant leader's heart ingrained in the veteran doesn't all of a sudden go away once they no longer wear the uniform. Research by Institute of Veterans and Military Families show that veterans possess exceptional team building skills and are highly trusted by colleagues in the workplace. We have seen this firsthand, the way a veteran hire can benefit in any business. And veteran-owned businesses have only strengthened the American economy. Over 3 million Americans are employed by 321,000 veteran-owned businesses in the United States. Together, these companies contribute $926 billion to the economy. That's an incredible investment, and the industry's veterans span from tech companies to construction, agriculture, defense, and more. Over 74% of businesses are founded by a veteran rather than being purchased or inherited. Making sure veterans can start a business and succeed as owners has long been a priority of our committee. And it's a personal priority of mine as well since I've been in Congress. Now, without veterans in the workforce, America would not be a world leader in innovation and economic growth. We are so grateful to have some of those corporations who hire veterans and personal veterans who own small business here with us today, including one from my own hometown. And I want to thank you for your service and for your continued to serve your community after you've left the service to build the economy. I'm eager to hear from our witnesses on the importance of hiring veterans and how we can increase opportunities for veterans during their transition to civilian life. I am also eager to hear how we can make it easier for companies and small businesses to be in a position to hire veterans. This means enacting pro-growth policies that are often at odds with the economy and economic decisions that are made by the Biden administration at this time, and that have been stifling that innovation. But with that, I want to take and recognize Ranking Member Takano for his opening statement.
Well, thank you, Chairman Bost, and thank you for holding this hearing on the impact of America's businesses on veteran employment and opportunity. Before we begin, it's impossible to discuss employment without addressing recent news in the automotive industry. I'd like to take a moment to congratulate the United Auto Workers on a truly groundbreaking agreement with Ford, Stellantis, and General Motors. Thousands of veterans are members of the UAW, and in the words of President Biden when he visited the picket line, quote, "You deserve what you've earned, and you've earned a hell of a lot more than you're getting paid now," end quote. The agreement reached last week is a massive win for the UAW, American workers, veterans, and the entire United States. Unions are good for America, and unions are good for veterans. Now to the topic at hand. The Biden economy has pulled this country from what some believed was an inevitable recession. Unemployment is down, wages are up, spending is up, and inflation has cooled since the months immediately after the pandemic. Does that mean everything is perfect? Also, in the words of President Biden, come on, man. No, more work is needed. We need to raise wages for veterans in the workplace to reflect the wage gains of the 1% and company executives. Strengthen employment protections so Guard and Reserve members don't have to worry if their jobs will exist when they return from serving their country. Ensure that opportunities for veterans of all backgrounds are fair. Simplify the process for veterans to translate their skills in the military into the marketplace, and make it easier for veterans to start their own businesses. Chairman Bost, you and I have served together on this committee for more than 8 years now. Can you believe that? 8 years, oh my God. I want to thank you for introducing our resolution honoring this week as Veteran Employment Week. And while we may have our differences from time to time, and while there are certain issues on we will never see eye to eye, one thing I have appreciated about working with you is that whenever possible, we have done our best to find common ground. And I think we can both agree that the goals I've outlined are worth pursuing in this committee. Today, we have the opportunity to talk about some of this country's largest employers, along with some veteran small business owners and some from your own district. Veterans on average earn more than their civilian counterparts, but I hope we can learn why veterans' wages aren't growing as fast as non-veterans. I hope we can also learn what employers think of diversity initiatives. I believe we are at our best when we harness the power of our diversity to spur creativity and innovation. However, we know that some in Congress have decried diversity goals and initiatives, so I look forward to hearing if employers feel the same way. Further, I want to learn more about how employers treat Guard and Reserve members when their requirements to our nation's defense conflicts with their employee responsibilities. In preparing for this hearing, our staff attempted to find a large employer of veterans that doesn't use forced arbitration agreements. However, call after call yielded proof that forced arbitration agreements are rampant in the workplace, forcing service members to choose between employment and upholding their duty to our nation, something I find truly shameful. In our EO subcommittee hearing earlier this year, it was asked, how common are forced arbitration agreements for service members? It turns out extremely common. I hope our witnesses before us can explain how exactly their company uses forced arbitration and what that means for Guard and Reserve members. We have the chance to make real change in employment rights for service members, and I hope this serves as a wake-up call. It is time to ban forced arbitration agreements for Guard and Reserve members. And I look forward to engaging with our witnesses this afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Bost, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Takano. Now I will introduce the first panel of witnesses. So first we have Mr. Tommy Jones. He's the Senior Director of Military and Veterans Affairs at Walmart. We also have Eric Eversole, President of Hiring Our Heroes. Mr. Michael McCall, who leads veterans recruitment at Verizon. And Ms. Erin Ising, Senior Director of Workforce Programs at Home Depot. And right now, I would like the witnesses, if you would, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that under penalty of perjury and that testimony you are about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, and let the record, thank you, you may sit down, and let the record reflect that all witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Mr. Jones, you are now recognized for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Chairman Bost, Ranking Member Takano, and esteemed members of the House Committee of Veterans Affairs, I'm honored to join you today as an Army veteran and the leader of Walmart's military programs. I am grateful for your leadership and partnership in honoring our nation's veterans and for the opportunity to share the work we are doing to support military families and create opportunities for veterans and military spouses. At Walmart, supporting those who serve has been ingrained in our DNA since the very beginning. Our founder, Sam Walton, served in the United States Army in World War II, and his values continue to define our company. We are immensely grateful for our nation's veterans and the values they bring. Our goal is to support veterans and military families during and after their service. Over a decade ago, we announced our Veterans Welcome Home commitment to hire 250,000 veterans by 2020. Since then, we've hired more than 533,000 veterans and military spouses and promoted nearly 64,000 to roles of greater responsibility and higher pay. Building on this success, we launched Find a Future in June of 2020. This tool guides military-related prospects through an audit of their current skills, experience, and education. It helps them explore a wide range of future possibilities, including employment, education, entrepreneurship, and provides a roadmap to achieve their goals. After more than 3.5 million engagements with members of the military community, Find a Future, we are expanding that platform to serve associates and our own community. Our Career Fellowship Program, in partnership with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and Hiring Here Initiatives, offers hiring summit and fellowship opportunities to veterans and their families. Support for our service members comes in many forms. Our Military Family Promise guarantees a job at a nearby Walmart store or Sam's Club for all military personnel, and including military spouses employed by the company who must PCS due to military orders. Additionally, we provide free counseling sessions, coaching, and digital wellness tools to help our associates manage stress, build resilience, and access the care they need. Walmart has established key relationships with organizations focused on supporting those who have served, including with Merging Vets and Players, which provides veterans a new team to assist with transition, personal development, and a sense of belonging. Another is Sheepdog Impact Assistance, which offers veterans opportunities for physical activities, peer-to-peer training, and volunteer opportunities for continued service. Once associates are hired at Walmart, they have access to one of the world's largest learning ecosystems, including Walmart Academy and Live Better You. These programs have helped thousands of associates build their skills that they desire through training and education offerings. As a founding member of the Coalition of Veteran-Owned Businesses, Walmart supports veteran-owned businesses across the U.S. Our annual open call event provides entrepreneurships the opportunity to meet Walmart and potentially get their products on our shelves or online. In fact, we spent $1.2 billion with veteran-owned suppliers in FY23. To strengthen our support of veterans in their community, Walmart and Walmart Foundation have invested $44 million since 2011 in job training, education, and community-based initiatives. Our aim is to build skill-based talent marketplace that recognizes the skills veterans bring, unlock opportunities, and accelerate the economic mobility in civilian sector. To that end, we have supported organizations like Hire Heroes USA and IVMF at Syracuse University, as well as the Manufacturing Institute. As we look to the future, we recognize the potential to address remaining barriers to successful transition from military service to civilian life. Collaboration and a shared vision will be critical and crucial in achieving this. We remain dedicated to the work and look forward to evolving and growing our approach to best serve veterans and military families. Thank you for the opportunity to share how Walmart is supporting military and veteran communities through employment, education, entrepreneurship, well-being programs, and our philanthropic efforts. I extend my deepest respect and gratitude to my fellow veterans for their sacrifice and service, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. And the written statement of Mr. Jones will be entered into the hearing record. Mr. Eversole, you are now recognized for 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Good morning, Chairman Boss, Ranking Member Takano, and distinguished members of this committee. My name is Eric Eversole, and I'm the president of Hiring Our Heroes and a vice president at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I'm also a retired Navy captain. As many of you know, Hiring Our Heroes was created when there was a national crisis in veteran unemployment. In 2011, we had hundreds of thousands of service members, many of them who were young, returning home from war zones, and they were finding an awful job market. Working with the Chamber's vast network of state and local chambers, Hiring Our Heroes led a national coalition of companies who were committed to making veteran hiring a priority. I'm honored to be on the panel today with several of those companies. And thanks to these companies and our collective efforts, much has changed over the last decade. Veteran unemployment is at a record low. For vets, in each category across the unemployment spectrum, their unemployment rates are lower than their civilian counterparts. We've seen a shift, a paradigm shift, in how service members transition from the military. Gone are the days where they simply were sent home to fend for themselves, where many would spend months, if not years, trying to find meaningful careers. Our country has been investing in their futures by ensuring that they have the right tools and resources prior to their transition, and it is working. Events like our career summits, which provide training and networking opportunities, as well as connections to military-ready employers, are an important part of this pre-transition work. We've seen unprecedented success from our Fellows Program, the largest DoD skill bridge program in the country, which provides internships to transitioning service members with one of more than 700 companies across the country. That program's impact is clear and unequivocal. This year alone, we will host more than 2,400 active duty fellows. 85% of those fellows will receive job offers within 90 days, and the average starting salary is more than $110,000. Our data also shows, our internal data shows, that it will help recruit the next generation of all volunteers. And while some may question the need for these programs, given the labor market and the military's current recruiting challenges, that would be a tremendous mistake. The best way to recruit the next generation of all volunteers is to ensure that the current generation not only survives, but thrives in their civilian career opportunities. These programs accomplish that. One last very important note. Much like our country faced a national crisis with veteran unemployment in 2011, we are facing a similar crisis with military spouses today. The inability of military spouses to find and maintain careers is forcing too many military families to rely upon a single source of income and is creating economic peril for those families, both in the near term and in the long term. It is causing service members to choose between serving their country and leaving. Much like we did in 2011, we must come together as a nation and make military spouse employment a top priority. We believe that the Military Spouse Career Accelerator Program, which was recently enacted as part of last year's National Defense Authorization Act, is an important step in that direction. As some of you may know, that's a pilot program that provides military spouses with a 12-week internship opportunities with host companies across the country, and DoD pays a stipend for those military spouses to participate in that program. And while the program has only been going on for 10 months now, we've hosted more than 400 military spouses in those internships, and much like the Fellows Program and SkillBridge, we're seeing an 80+% offer rate and average salaries of approximately $70,000. So these programs work, and they're a step in the right direction. And we're certainly looking forward to continuing these efforts for military spouses. Once again, Chairman Bost and Ranking Member Takano and the members of this committee, thank you for today's opportunity, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ebersol. And Mr. McCoy, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Bost, Ranking Member Takano, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of Verizon and the over 8,200 veterans and more than 500 military spouses we are privileged to employ. I am honored to be here. My name is Michael McCoy, and I'm the head of military affairs at Verizon. I am a proud third-generation service member, serving as an officer in the Army National Guard since 2011. Serving our veterans is not just a job for me, it is my passion. Military service is an honor, but it presents unique challenges. For example, I was deployed when my wife was 6 months pregnant, and returned home when my son was 8 months old. The military is also all-encompassing and becomes part of your identity, but military service cannot last forever. Few understand the magnitude of transition from military to civilian life. Verizon strives to make it as frictionless as possible. Today, I would like to share with you how we recruit and support veterans. At Verizon, we believe that veterans make our company better. In addition to providing for our national defense, the U.S. military is the greatest job training program in the world. It cultivates individuals who are disciplined, skilled, thrive under pressure, making them ideal for hyper-competitive communications industry. Military service imparts both hard and soft skills that translate into a variety of critical jobs at Verizon. We recruit pilots to fly drones for disaster response and engineers to build our best-in-class networks and protect them from cyber attacks. For all of these reasons, we enthusiastically recruit, retain, and engage the military community. Verizon is proud to be recognized for this. We've been named the #1 military-friendly company in the U.S. 3 times. We have also been ranked #1 by Best for Vets and received numerous employer support of the Guard and Reserve Awards. Verizon relies on a 3-pronged approach: recruit, retain, support. To attract separating service members, we host a web page for veterans and military spouses that provides information on needed skills and open positions within the company. Verizon also works with the Department of Defense programs such as SkillBridge and the Transition Assistance Program, TAP. Through SkillBridge, we provide separating military personnel with civilian work experience through internships and training during their last 180 days of service. Regarding the TAP program, we are working to expand our relationships with TAP centers, but we believe that TAP may be under-resourced, and there is an opportunity to expand their impact. For example, enabling virtual classes in addition to those in person would allow employers to reach more potential hires. Another valuable recruitment program is the Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship Program, offered through HOH, which gives Verizon access to a broad pool of military talent. Through our partnership with the DoD and the U.S. Chamber, we have trained 215 service members and hired 183. 90% of these participants are still with Verizon today. Finally, we have strong partnerships with other career readiness veteran serving organizations, namely 50 Strong and 4Block. But with over 100 VA-recognized veteran organizations, the amount of information can be overwhelming. Guidance and coordination from the VA could help filter what is most relevant. At Verizon, we believe that retaining our veteran employees is just as important as recruiting them. We do everything we can to ensure they are valued and supported. To give veterans a continued sense of camaraderie and the opportunity to serve others, we established an internal employee resource group called VALID. This gives veterans a forum for support and career guidance. It also hosts volunteer projects that provide thousands of hours of veteran-focused community service annually. This includes raising awareness for the Affordable Connectivity Program, ACP, which provides eligible veterans with broadband service, a program we urge Congress to continue funding. In addition, we help veterans register and track changes for earned benefits. For example, this year, we partnered with the VA's communications team to inform our veterans of the passage of the PACT Act. Finally, for our employees in the National Guard or Reserves like myself, we provide a generous military leave policy, including gap pay for up to 36 months. In closing, I would like to thank you for holding this hearing. As the committee considers ways to advance opportunities for veterans, Verizon stands ready to work with you and support the men and women who have bravely served our country. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Ms. Eisen, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Boss, Ranking Member Takano, and distinguished members of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. As a military spouse and mother of U.S. Marines who have separated from service, this topic is very close to my heart. With me today is Haley Weaver, the other apron, who leads our military relations team, and she's also a military spouse. I'm the Senior Director of Workforce Programs for the Home Depot, the world's largest home improvement retailer. Founded in 1979, the Home Depot operates more than 2,300 retail stores, distribution centers, and corporate facilities with over 470,000 associates. We take pride in taking care of these associates. One example is the investment of approximately $1 billion in annualized compensation increases for our frontline hourly associates announced earlier this year. Of those 470,000, tens of thousands are veterans, National Guardsmen, reserves, and military spouses. You can often recognize them in the stores by the celebration badges on their aprons. We find that veterans acclimate well to our culture of service and inverted pyramid leadership approach and bring to our ranks tenured leadership, adaptability, resilience, and collaboration. Last year alone, we hired over 14,000 veterans. When veterans put on an apron, they also receive a military-specific onboarding class, a veteran new hire coach, access to veteran-specific resources and benefits, and an invitation to participate in our Military Appreciation Resource Group. Our partnership with the Department of Defense's SkillBridge program has allowed us to host over 150 transitioning service members since 2019. During their time with us, we provide hands-on experience for what it's like to work in corporate America, and each fellow has a host team and veteran mentor to learn from. Graduates of our program have gone on to become cybersecurity analysts, software engineers, project managers, and are even senior leaders in our stores and distribution centers. Programs like SkillBridge and Hiring Our Heroes provide invaluable access to top-tier talent emerging from the military. It is critical that the DoD and the military commands continue to support important transition programs to bridge the life from active duty to civilian careers. Recognizing that less than 7% of the U.S. population is served in the military, we developed training courses and reference guides for all hiring managers, HR professionals, and talent acquisition associates to ensure they know the value veterans bring to the company and can understand their unique capabilities. Furthermore, we have a range of policies supporting our military-affiliated associates and fostering their long-term career growth. To stand by our National Guard, active duty, and reserve associates, we recently enhanced our military leave of absence policy. This update includes a substantial full pay benefit for up to 7 consecutive days, complementing our existing supplemental pay policy, ensuring that associates who temporarily step away from their role at Home Depot receive the financial support that they deserve while serving our nation. We also offer international LOA for spouses following their service member on an international deployment. To further support these military spouse associates, in 2020, we created the Military Spouse Job Transfer Policy. This program guarantees a job offer at one of our stores or supply chain locations when they relocate under their spouse's orders. With available positions across thousands of U.S. locations, we can provide a stable career across their moves. Looking outside our own hiring, we provide transition support for all veterans. This summer, we launched Mission Transition online. Created by veterans and for veterans, this series of courses is designed to empower servicemen and women and equip them with the soft skills necessary for a seamless transition, like translating their military experience into a civilian resume and the importance of branding and networking. These classes are free to the public and found on our careers website. Turning to veteran communities. In 2011, the Home Depot Foundation recognized the growing crisis with veterans' homelessness and pledged to invest $500 million in veterans' causes. We are $475 million towards that goal and have improved or built more than 55,000 veterans' homes and facilities. The foundation also made a $50 million pledge to train the next generation of skilled tradespeople and help fill the growing skilled labor gap. The foundation's military program, in partnership with Home Builders Institute and SkillBridge, is offered on 10 military installations, including Camp Pendleton and Congressman Levin's district. Over 3,000 transitioning service members have graduated from this 12-week program, equipped with industry-recognized certifications and ready to start a new career in the trades. Beyond the Foundation's military program, the Home Depot also helps other veterans and others interested in working in the trades to start their careers, first through our free construction skills program, and then by networking with our hiring professional customers to find a job in their area. More information on all of our Path to Pro workforce programs can be found at pathtopro.com. We are proud to have been named a military-friendly employer, spouse employer, company, and brand, as well as Forbes' Best Employer for Veterans, among other awards. As you can see, I take immense pride in representing a company that has held an unwavering commitment to military families and veterans and communities. Members of the committee, thank you for having us here today. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Eisen. And we are now going to go to the time of questioning, and I will yield myself 5 minutes. Mr. McCoy, as supporters of veterans employment, what do you see as, and this is a big question because that's one of the main reasons we're having this, what do you see as the biggest barriers to hiring veterans, and how can this committee help improve the opportunities for veterans and eliminate these barriers?
Thank you for the question, Chairman. One of the barriers is aggregating veterans. We are elusive. None of us are currently wearing a uniform right now. How can you tell we're a veteran? And finding those veterans in our communities doing the work that they're doing is difficult. as several people have mentioned, only 7% of our population have served. So we work to find them wherever they are. We've been very successful with the Hiring Our Heroes program. We take part in every single opportunity that they offer. We go to military bases, Camp Pendleton. We go all across the country to find them. One of the things that can help us be more successful is having some type of employment coalition connection team at the TAP centers. Oftentimes, finding somebody who you can work with is difficult.
Have you found that some of, and this can go to any of you, have you found that we have some TAP programs that are more than willing to let you in and others that are not so willing? And what problems do you face when they're not so willing?
Thank you. That's a great question. What we see is everybody is stretched very thin. There are hundreds of service members who are looking for opportunities to learn how to translate their skills, their experience, the time in the military, what that looks like, what a right resume looks like. And so we work with them to figure out how we can help supplement any of the work that they're doing by participating in career workshops. We're very active at military bases to help in those kinds of capacities, and we do that as best we can to help service members.
I would say, seconding what he said, it's difficult for us sometimes to get onto the bases because there's quotas and maxes, and so if you're not the first there sometimes, or we often can't get in there. And then I would say the recruiting access, like the process for getting onto the base too, can be different. It all depends kind of on the command and what they support and who their network is. And so having a central way for us to access those bases, like he mentioned, would be very helpful.
And just add, the consistency, Mr. Chairman, of the turnover of those people that are working in the TAP offices, the different contracts that land those, also limit you to resources. So there's not a consistent way to communicate with them. Even if you can't get on the base, there should be a way to communicate with them on a regular basis, post job alerts or something to that effect.
Let me just add, Mr. Chairman, there's widespread inconsistency across the bases, which creates challenges for a lot of companies. But I would say that this year in particular, and maybe last year as well, given some of the recruiting challenges, it has been more difficult to access bases over the last couple of years because of that tension between retention and transition. And that is creating some problems for organizations like ours.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, because it is a case where it is not a natural reaction for DOD to try to encourage their service members to leave, okay? And especially at a time when recruitment's down and everything like that. Mr. Jones, when a veteran is hired by Walmart, what programs do they have access to on the day one that they can continue to grow as an employee?
A great question, Mr. Chairman. So we have LBU, Live Better University, and we have training curriculum. So it's state-of-the-art training, $0 that costs anything for them to be able to upskill, reskill in any certifications, focusing on whether they want to focus on STEM education. In addition to that, we have the Find a Future platform that we've launched. That was initially focused externally. Now we're using that to upskill and reskill current employees. So from day one, all of our service members that join, to include our Guard and Reserve and military spouses, have access to that.
Yeah, I think each one of us know and understand that when our veterans leave their active service, whatever their particular MOS might not be something they can use in your company. Probably disarming bombs is probably not something that each of you need, but the veterans themselves provide an opportunity, and I express this so much to everyone. We spend a lot of time in this committee because we have to deal with people who have been hurt and or in mentally or physically by the DOD. However, every veteran, and we got to make sure we stay focused on that, is a quality employee that'll show up on time, is mission-centered, and is a great employee to hire, and that's what I hope we'll bring out today. My time has expired, and I will yield to the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You heard me mention forced arbitration agreements undermining USERRA protections for service members in my opening statement. I would like to ask Mr. Jones whether Walmart uses forced arbitration agreements for currently serving Guard or Reserve members.
Ranking Member Takano, that is something we do not participate in. We do not force or require arbitration to dispute USERA concerns. We don't force them to sign anything, and we're in full support of the USERA Act.
And why don't you?
I mean, we believe in citizen-soldier partnerships. We understand that, serving in the Guard and Reserve makes us better as a company. It's the diversity of our workforce. And so the work that they experience in our offices or in our stores, they bring that to the military, and then their weekend drills and their 2-week a year experience, they bring that back into the workforce. And so we value that from a diversity standpoint, and the skills that they bring in is transferable.
Well, speaking about diversity, I'd like to know about Walmart's philosophy about DEI programs and whether you embrace them and why.
Absolutely. I mean, diversity, we're stronger with diversity. I mean, we know that, and we know that the military is one of the biggest foundations for us to pull talent from. It's the most diverse workforce out there, and so we value that. We know that every person matters, and we treat everybody the way they should be treated. So we understand how impactful diversity is to our organization, and we promote that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. McCoy, same question. Does Verizon employ forced arbitration agreements?
Thank you for the question, Chairman, Ranking Member Takano. We work with our legal teams to ensure that we comply with the full rights and laws of USERA. As a currently serving guardsman, I understand how difficult it is to leave work in the middle of the week, at the end of the week. And so we do everything we can to ensure that we are completely complying with USERA. As our specific forced arbitration policy, my legal team will respond back with that of more detail.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And with regard to DEI and in diversity initiatives, fully embracing at Verizon?
Yeah, thank you for the question again. The diversity of the military is unmatched anywhere else in our workforce. We work actively to ensure that we are finding veterans wherever they are. We work with different groups. We look at different groups that aggregate veterans by how they identify, wherever they're at geographically, wherever their heritage and lineage is. We work with all of those groups to ensure that we're actively finding the top talent in these groups to recruit them to Verizon, and then we work to retain and support them.
It's not just with respect to veterans, you're looking for diversity in all different manner. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Ms. Eisen, could you comment about whether Home Depot uses forced arbitration agreements with current serving and reserve members?
In general, Home Depot does not have arbitration agreements in any of our employment contracts. In very rare cases, you might find them where we acquired companies, an agreement was already in place, but in general, no.
Okay, but so when you acquire companies, they may have in place arbitration agreements for Guard and Reserve members, but you do not employ them with your own employees.
No, correct.
And can you comment as to why you don't?
I can't.
Okay, fair enough. What about DEI, diversity, equity, and
Yeah, Home Depot has many DE&I and equity programs. We fully embrace them. Veterans causes are just one of them. And we do a lot that I feel actually is very impactful. I'll give you one example from a veteran's perspective. I talked about our fellowships in my testimony. 72% of the people that we have hosted through our fellowships are diverse by self-disclosure. And so we really feel, because the military over-indexes, as somebody already stated, on being diverse and being over-educated, that when you hire those people, that's what you get when you hire veterans.
And so your DEI initiatives are not just focused on veterans, but the full gamut from gender to
Yes.
Ethnicity, race, all different backgrounds.
Right.
Do you believe that, does Home Depot believe that diversity is actually a strength?
I would say that we believe our associates of all types bring us and make us our strength. So we've got all different genders, backgrounds, and we do support them through different DE&I initiatives.
Well, thank you, Ms. Eisen. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ranking Member. Representative Franklin, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our panel for being here today. I appreciate everything that you all are doing, both in your professional capacities and also in your service to our country. not to be overlooked, Ms. Eisen. My wife would be, she would scold me if I didn't acknowledge that the role you have as a military spouse and a mother is just as important and challenging and sacrificial as all the gentlemen there to your right. But also what you all do in your leadership roles for businesses throughout the country. Obviously, you guys are huge companies. You have a lot of assets to pour into this, but I would tell you that there are hundreds of thousands of smaller businesses out there that are looking to your initiatives to figure out what can we steal from those guys, what are the best practices. So I can tell you as a former veteran business owner too, I would often look to the things that you all are doing to see, is that something we could integrate? In the limited time we have, about 4 minutes, so about a minute for each of you, I would love to hear, with respect to attracting and retaining veteran workforce, what's the one thing, I'm sure you spend a lot of time thinking about how can we improve our programs. What's the one thing that you would either have us stop doing or do less of, or start doing that we're not doing that would help your job be easier? And Ms. Eisen, I'd like to start with you and just go down the line. Got probably about 45 seconds each.
Gosh, it's hard to pick one and fit it in 45 seconds.
Just one thing that's most impactful.
So one thing that would be really impactful for you guys is help making transition a priority in the commands. We've talked about how they've got a lot on their plates, they've got limited people, and so to be able to give up these people to do like a Hiring Our Heroes program, it's very difficult, and we've had challenges where we've identified someone that wants to come to our fellowship program, makes it through our interview process, we're ready to bring them on, and then their command decides that they just can't let them go. And so we lose that fellow, or we've even had them in our program get called back and get promoted, which is a good thing, but get pulled back out of the program. So making that transition and kind of protecting that time a priority would be very helpful, especially at the junior enlisted level.
We hear that frequently. Yeah, Mr. McCoy.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I would say one of the things that you could do to help us all would be to continue to talk about and support transition programs throughout all phases of a career. When we look at how we go to AFSCs, we go to MOS schools, all of the different professional military education that we go to, talking about what skills you're gaining when you go to those. And that helps us build a repertoire throughout the course of our career that when we transition, we know we've built these skills. We know who we are. We understand what value we bring to the workforce, and continue to talk about that. And as my good friend, Sergeant Major of the Army, retired Tilly, says, talk to us old veterans. We want to help.
Do you feel that they communicate those skills well when they are out there in the job force looking? I know we try to help them a lot through TAP and all, but translating military skills, whether it's ordnance disposal to civilian skills, do they do a good job of that, or can we do better to help them?
We could do better. It's hard sometimes, though, to talk about some of those very outside of the traditional civilian employment skills of how you translate it, but it's talking about the generalities of leadership, time management, success that you've had that helps.
Great, thank you. Mr. Jones.
Sir, I don't want to duplicate efforts, but I think the Skill Bridge program and programs like Hiring Our Heroes Fellowship Program, those programs give a preview and help educate the civilian population on the skills that service members bring. So it's an on-the-job training program that allows them to really understand. It's really easy to focus on hard skill, right? Cybersecurity to cybersecurity. But as a first sergeant, leading a communications team and moving into talent acquisition, that's my soft skills that allowed me to do that, right? And so you don't get that, reading a resume. And so I think there's an opportunity to really focus on how do we talk about service members of this generation. World War II is known as the greatest generation. I would say that this generation is the most educated military workforce we've ever had. And so what are we doing to promote that? I think there's an opportunity there. And we do that through these programs that we have, right? Getting it out into the communities, into the civilian corporations, and that really gives them a good understanding, a peek behind the curtain to understand what this talent really is about. We chose to serve in the military for a purpose.
Okay, Mr. Everson.
Thank you, sir, for that question. Very quickly, I think we need to support, bolster, and protect SkillBridge. After doing this for a decade, the majority of service members that we serve and we see come out, they are relying heavily on their soft skills when they come out, their leadership, their resiliency, and those are the hardest things to show to a potential employer. I can put that I'm a great leader on my resume, but nobody's going to buy it until they actually see it in the workforce. And so to protect these service members and these SkillBridge opportunities allows them to showcase their skill sets in a work environment and allows them to get hired and brought in at the right level, which helps with retention and all the other things that go along with employment.
Great, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Ms. Brownlee, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. I was going to go down the line of mandatory arbitration, but I'm going to switch gears here since the ranking member has asked that. So I'll focus on gender pay, equal pay. I mean, one thing about the military, there are a lot of good things about the military, but one really good thing about the military is that there's equal pay amongst men and women within the military. They come out of the military, and the Pew Research Center did polling to say that we are still falling behind by an average of $7,000 of a pay differential between women veterans and male veterans. And so my question really to all of you, what are your organizations doing to eliminate the gender pay gap across the board, regardless, actually, of veteran status?
Thank you, Mr. Congressman. I think that we're always evaluating our processes and evaluating our compensation. Recently, we've done a reevaluation of our compensation, and we'll always continue to do that to make sure that, one, from a pay area and from a skills base, that we're paying accordingly. And so I think that that's something that is always top of mind. We're paying our associates based off of the qualifications they bring into the organization, not based off their gender.
Thank you. Mr. McCoy?
Yes, thank you for the question. Not to repeat what Mr. Jones said, but we agree. We are working to make sure that when we work with service members of both genders, we're working with them to make sure they understand the skills and experience they bring to the table. They're selecting the right level of position, and they're articulating their skills and experience in a way that helps them ensure that they're getting the job that's the best fit for them, that allows for maximum compensation.
Very good. I will say this Pew research report also stated that women veterans are getting paid more than women civilians, and likewise for male veterans versus male citizens. So I guess, the question is when you say, well, it's about their abilities and so forth and so on, to me, it seems as though what's really happening is the people coming in from the military are more qualified, therefore getting a higher pay than their male or female counterparts.
Yeah, I would just like to add, I think some of the programs allow for that, long understanding of it. You do an interview process that may be 3 or 4 interviews, and you're looking at a resume to base a decision off that. And we try to focus on making sure that we have the right pay areas for each one of those. But as you start to be able to evaluate and understand the additional skills that person brings into an organization, when you have a program like the fellowship program where you have a 90-day evaluation of that person, you're understanding a little bit more level of detail of their skills. And therefore, it allows you to bring that to when you come to the offer process, when you go to the compensation and asking them, this person brings these additional skill sets that we didn't see on their resume, but based off our evaluation of this personnel, we have the ability to give them more compensation based off the experiences that they have. And I think that's really important.
I'll comment too. In addition to what he said, I think it's important to note not just what they get in the initial wage, it's also the ongoing investment that companies make to make sure they have a best associate experience. So benefits, bonuses, job and career development. And we see that at Home Depot, especially in our stores, 90% of our leaders started as hourly associates. So even though they may come in one place, it's also helping them advance and move quickly based on the capabilities that they have.
Thank you for that. I think the data that I'm speaking of incorporates, all of the full package as well. So I just have a few seconds left. So I just wanted to ask, I commend all of you for reaching out to our veteran population for their employment. I also commend you for hiring disabled veterans as well. So I'm just wondering, what are you doing in terms of accessing more disabled veterans to accommodate them either at work or their ability to work from home?
Thank you for the question. We have a lot of accessibility. We service dogs, equipment, whatever that needs, we work with them to find the right solution.
And I'll just add, on day one, we were introduced to during the interview process, we talk about accessibility, but on day one, they're introduced to our accessibility team. Anybody that has a need, that to be able to better allow them to perform their duties at work, we're going to accommodate them to the best of our ability.
My time's up. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Brownlee. Dr. Miller-Meeks, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also want to thank the chair for having a hearing on something that reflects positively on our veterans, and that is the tremendous attributes that they have that they bring into the workplace. So often we're focused on mental health or suicide or PTSD, and we get this thought that all veterans are like that. So as a veteran, I'm just going to say I really appreciate that we're talking about the positive attributes of veterans. One of the things that our state of Iowa did, I was director of public health, so I was instrumental in this with our governor at that time, Governor Branstad, to do a home-based Iowa initiative. And our home-based Iowa, you're nodding your heads, you know very well of the program, was precisely to get veterans employed. And along that same time, what we also did was to have no state income tax on military pensions. And that's helped attract more veterans to our state, and we're delighted to have them. For my part, it was working with licensure and licensure laws, both for veterans, recognizing their training within the military, but also veteran spouses. So this question's for Mr. Jones. What ways can the Department of Defense and the Department of Veterans Affairs better prepare our service members to be successful in your company or the other panelists, or a company or a similar one as they transition from military to civilian life?
Thank you, Mr. Conner, and thank you for your service. There's many ways that I think you all can help us. We touched on it a little bit. Really focusing on educating them left of transition, right? Allowing them to understand where their skills are best utilized. And I think we talked about hard skills and soft skills. I think about the ABSVAB, right? So when I joined the military, I took the ABSVAB, and I had no idea that I would be good at as a commo guy for 20 years in the Army. Right? 20 years later, if I would have reverse engineered that and took the ABSVAB on the way out, that might paint the picture of what I could be now, all the skills that I learned. Again, Michael talked about we're the best trained workforce in the world. We have the best training organization, the best leadership training, right? And so reassessing those is I think, the biggest piece of doing it, and doing it left of transition is really important.
Thank you. Mr. McCoy, in your testimony, you mentioned that Verizon has a special dispensation for employees who serve in the National Guard and Reserve. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, thank you for the question. Thank you as well for your service. And Home Base Iowa, good job. We have the opportunity to make sure that we're asking service members, whether they're currently serving or they're veterans, to self-identify. In that, we then work with them to make sure that they understand, hey, when I go out on military leave, it's not a bad thing. And so the military gap pay provides the opportunity to cover up to the Verizon base salary compared to the base salary, so we're talking base to base, in the military. This doesn't account for any kind of special pays or flight or any of those other things. That makes sure that they are full when they're gone, that if their military pay is much lower, they would be made whole. My last deployment, I had an individual who was a CTO at his company. He was an E5. He couldn't deploy. He would have lost his house. And so, making sure that we find ways to keep our guardsmen and reservists in uniform helps our nation.
And thank you for that. And Ms. Eisen, first of all, I really appreciate my 10% discount as a veteran at Home Depot, so I'm just going to throw that out there. Does Home Depot partner with the VA and the Department of Labor, and what recommendations would you have for improving opportunities for transitioning service members to connect with civilian employers?
Yeah, we certainly partner with Department of Labor. We partner with a lot of partnerships, SkillBridge, Hiring Our Heroes, across the way. And I would say keeping those partnerships, making sure Congress supports them, like we've been talking about, is critical. I would also say, and we touched on this a little bit, the hard skills versus the soft skills. And usually when we say soft skills, people think, oh, they need to know how to write the resume or how to do the interview. But it's really being able to talk through how, Chairman Bost mentioned an artillery person. My husband was a tanker. So talking about how when you're a tanker, what does that mean when you come to the civilian workforce? and he is now a middle school teacher. So translating tanker to middle school teacher isn't something that generally a class is going to teach you how to do, or that you're going to get from a military skills translator. So making sure that we're giving enough in those classes to talk through some of those things so that they can fully, articulate their transition would be very helpful.
Even though it's been a while since I've been in military school, I can readily see how a tank commander would be able to navigate middle school. But with that, thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back my time.
Thank you, Dr. Miller-Meeks. Mr. Levin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the ranking member. I thank you, gentlemen, for making this Veteran Employment Week. I was telling staff in our Economic Opportunity Subcommittee, every week is Veteran Employment Week, but nonetheless very grateful. Grateful also to the chairman of the Economic Opportunity Subcommittee, Mr. Van Orden, and I was honored to get to chair that subcommittee myself for 4 years. And we're going to continue working together to do all we can to try to get every veteran a great job. And I'm also thankful to all of you for the work you're doing at Camp Pendleton. I'm hopeful, as I heard about base access, that you have all the access you need at Camp Pendleton. I saw it kind of nod that way, so maybe we could speak after. You could speak with my staff after to see if we can do anything to help you in that regard. I wanted to ask you about making sure that we're hiring enlisted and officers, and that we're giving both the time and attention necessary. I think everybody that serves has unique skills, experiences, aspirations, and I think it's our duty as a grateful nation to make sure everybody has a chance to succeed. Sometimes our enlisted service members are overlooked. I have seen that, and that's despite the valuable skills and valuable life experiences they're bringing to the table. And so I'll start with Mr. Jones. In your company's veteran recruitment work, and I was very impressed to hear about what you're doing, how do you ensure that enlisted veterans specifically have opportunities both in the retail side and then in the higher paying corporate jobs?
Thank you, Mr. Conklin. I appreciate that. And I think what better commitment and what better example is Walmart hiring as their senior military personnel an enlisted guy, right? So I think that that's an example of the commitment.
We didn't plan this in advance.
Wasn't planned, right? We were text messaged it, but it didn't come through. But no, I think we're really focused on all levels of skills. But I think that's the narrative in the civilian sector, that West Point, you think about the academies, that's the only way, or the ROTCs, and that's the exposure that people get because those are usually in positions of authority, and you hear that. So again, it's storytelling. Internal storytelling of the personnel that are inside of your company and understanding those people and telling their stories. So-and-so was an infantryman, now is a truck driver. So-and-so was a medic, and now is leading an IT as a project manager. So internal storytelling, I think, is the most critical thing that we can do, not only to educate the civilian population, but for the other veterans in our organization to stand up and be counted and really pay it forward to those others, right? And so we see a lot of that, a lot of referrals from those types of actions, right? They're proud of their service after we tell that story, and they bring the next person on. And so that's how we've really been focusing on it here, sir.
Appreciate that. Please keep at it. Ms. Eisen, I want to ask about SkillBridge. I have noticed that participation rates in SkillBridge are lower for enlisted than for officers. Curious if you know in your company's SkillBridge program, what percentage of participants are enlisted versus officers?
I don't have the exact stat. I will tell you it is, it's harder to get the junior enlisted. They are, the commands are less likely to give someone who hasn't had 20 years in the military the time away toward the end of their time with us. And so they're harder to find. And we have stood up programs very specifically focused on the junior enlisted. We have a program to become a tool tech that's in our rental centers. We have a program for our IT help desk. We have a program for store leadership in the department supervisor level. But our biggest challenge is finding the people to come be in the program, and especially with the locations and with the relocations, that makes it hard too, because if they're finishing their time in Virginia, but they want to move to California, the relocations across can sometimes be difficult with the SkillBridge program as well. So it's actually just finding the people and getting them into the program seems to be harder. I will say too, with retail, and I'm sure Walmart can appreciate this as well, 1 in 12 people, 1 in 12 veterans work in retail, but 1 in 4 people in the United States work in retail. So veterans just don't think of retail as a place that I can go and have a second career. Even though, as I mentioned before, 90% of Home Depot's leadership in the stores started as hourly associates. So they just don't think of it as a place to go, they think of it as a cashier. So we could use help in making sure that service members understand the breadth of opportunities in front of them too. It's not just that they have to go out and find logistics if they were doing logistics in the military. Their skill set can translate across a wide range of industries.
Very much appreciate that answer, and I think you have our commitment. We're going to do all we can to continue to improve TAP to be responsive to everybody across the board, enlisted and officers alike. And I'm out of time, but let me know about Camp Pendleton, will you, please? And I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. General Berkman, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Eisen, do you have an actual tool belt on that orange apron?
Not on this one, but the one I actually wear in the stores, yes, it is full.
Okay, well, one of my proudest possessions, actually, I have a couple of them, each from the Home Depot stores in my district, signed by the veterans there. And I, like Dr. Miller Meeks, thank you for the 10% discount. I decided to invest some of my grandkids' inheritance in it. So, but to the point here, Mr. Chairman, thanks for holding the hearing. And thank you for being here. And what I noticed in your initial testimony was the subject of access at the bases. And I think we might have a rare opportunity here to maybe take this hearing, you as a group, over to armed services at some point in military personnel, because roughly just under 70% of the people that you're going to hire are still committed to the individual ready reserve under their 8-year contract. So when you think about access to the bases, when you think about who is the target market, if you will, for your recruitment and hiring, when they leave active duty at Camp Pendleton, or pick your fort, or pick your naval base, or your Air Force base, they still have a commitment to the individual ready reserve. So my question to you is, have you all looked into what the different services might do as far as they maintain contact with the individual ready reserve? Sometimes there's IRR musters, other things. Anybody got any thoughts on that? Any background or experience?
Mr. Congressman, I would say that I'm not aware of anything that we've done with IIR in my experience and in my previous experience. I think it's a great point. It's something we should look into, but I think the access still is going to be limited. I mean, we have challenges right now reaching service members in our own companies, so I think accessing them externally is going to.
Well, when you think about here, you have these and largely young men and women, whether it be officer and enlisted, who have been in pretty intense military engagement since they put the uniform on, and now they're in a transition phase. Some of them are going to be looking for work immediately, others not so much. But I would suggest to you that as Veterans Affairs Committee, we're that second stage, afterwards, after that initial 8-year commitment has been fulfilled, that we begin to see the data on all of these folks. But all that means is that I believe there is different opportunities. Love to explore those with you.
Yes, sir.
To see how we make the contact. And you can picture what a young, let's say, if you serve 4 years active duty and you enlisted and went through boot camp at the age of 18, what their mindset might be at 22, especially if they're not married, don't have children. They're a pretty tough group to get a handle around there for a while, because they're probably going to go out and just relax a little bit. But I'm proud of all of you. We are all proud of all of you for what you're trying to do. Let's see if we can figure out, in fishing terms, a way to throw that net or expand the net so that we get the message across.
Sir, I think you bring up a really interesting point. Some of the things, I think extending, nobody wants to extend an enlistment, but you think about what we did with the warrior care units. As people, got into those transition units or those warrior transition units, maybe there's an opportunity, again, looking left of transition as an opportunity to work with those that are transitioning out of the military. I think one of the things that I failed as a non-commissioned officer, I thought I was a pretty good non-commissioned officer. One of the things that I failed is my transitioning service members. I basically said, we're going on, we have missions, we're going back to combat, and I failed that. And so I think in my civilian life, I've had the opportunity to kind of make.
I hate to cut you off, but you're eating up my time here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but I will, because as a good NCO, you did exactly the right thing, because you've got to take the next unit to the fight, and those who are leaving, they've served honorably, have a nice life, move on. Now, how do we bridge that gap? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, General, and Representative Beluzio, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, everybody. Mr. Jones, I want to just start with a quick clarification for your answer to Ranking Member Takano's question about forced arbitration. I understand you're not using those for folks, Guard, Reserve, so you SARA, SCRA issues, but is Walmart using them for other employees?
No associates at all, sir.
Good, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Shifting gears, I want to talk a bit about military spouse, service member spouse issues. Ms. Eisen, I may start with you. I understand Home Depot has a spouse job transfer policy guaranteeing a job to one of your military spouse workers when their service member spouse is transferred or reassigned or has orders elsewhere. Can you give me a sense of what is that program? How does it work? Has it been a success? What have you learned from the program?
Sure, I'd love to talk about it. So the stat I will use is that military spouses cross state lines 10 times more than their civilian counterparts. So when you're moving every 2 to 3 years, it's very hard to have a career. And when you have a family and you're having to go find childcare and you're buying a new house and you're doing all the things that come with a move every 2 to 3 years, it's hard to focus on your career. So what we do is we have a transfer program. So if you're working at one store, distribution center, or location and you move on spouse's orders, we will help you find a job and where you're going. And almost all bases have a store within 30 miles of it, so we can guarantee that we will have a job offer for you wherever you go. We have found it to be extremely positive. In fact, on my military relations team, one of my program leaders is a military spouse. She transferred across the U.S. with her family two times, I think, before coming to Atlanta, and is now on my team in Atlanta as well. So we see that it works. She was able to keep her career with us, and we have a lot of great stories about military spouses that have done the same.
Thank you. Either of you from Verizon, Walmart, any similar programs or things you want to share that you're doing on military spouse employment?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We also offer a lot of portability. We look at how we can solve for whatever that challenge is, whether it's geographic, whether it's, hey, we don't have that type of role in that area. Our team, as well as the human resources team, works to solve for those problems. On the employment side, I think to some of the previous questions, you've got to find them. Just like a veteran who takes off the uniform, they don't have a shirt that says, hey, call me military spouse. It's figuring out how you can provide opportunities for them and meet them where they're at. My spouse, I'm still currently serving, has lived through deployments. She understands that. And so I understand that we need to go out and solve for their issues. We use the Hiring Our Heroes military spouse program, the Career Accelerator, everything we can do, we try to find them and help them solve any issues that they have.
Mr. Jones, anything to add from Walmart's point of view?
And the only thing, sir, is just, I think, self-identification, and Michael hit on that. It's really understand. That's not a question that we ask. We've predominantly asked in the past, but we are now asking that question to self-identify as a military spouse so that we can help them inside their communities, inside of Walmart.
Mr. Eversole, I may come to you on a related question. So Home Depot, for instance, has a store within 30 miles of, I think you said, nearly every major base or many. Smaller businesses aren't going to have that kind of footprint if someone's looking to move. What can we learn from success of these kinds of programs for companies with national reach that small businesses could be taking advantage of?
Thank you for that question, sir. I think the first priority that all companies need to do is actually track it and make it a priority. So if you're not tracking military spouse employment in the first instance, it's really hard to think about what services or opportunities they may need in the future, and it also impacts how you recruit people. And so if you don't understand the unique needs of military spouses, because you're not tracking it and you don't understand it, it makes it really difficult to create programs and opportunities around it. It's impossible for organizations like mine to actually track outcomes. And we're focused on outcomes right now. How do we help ensure that a population that is 92% women are finding meaningful career opportunities in this country because they're serving too?
Well, thank you, and I encourage you all to continue thinking about spouses as well. The unemployment rate, as I understand it, for active duty spouses is 6 times the national average. For reserve and guard, it's double. I've got a bill, HR 3900, which extends some USERRA benefits to spouses. I was pleased and very happy to see it pass out of our Economic Opportunity Subcommittee in a bipartisan fashion. I'm hopeful we'll see movement there, but there's a lot more work to be done out in the private sector and certainly for us here in the Congress. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Luttrell, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for your service, and for the spouses especially. I mean, I'm on borrowed time. You know, I'm like most of you probably are too. So if it wasn't for my lovely bride, I don't know if I could make it. You know, I told her when I got out of the military, I was like, I'm never going to leave you again. I'm sure all my colleagues in here that served in the military, I'm never going to leave you again. And damn it, we got elected, and I haven't seen my family in almost 8 weeks. So it's one of those things. You know, if you follow a service member's career, if they come out of high school into the military and they serve 20 plus years, there's what I've noticed in the veteran space is there's that little miss of becoming, and for lack of a better term, you miss the opportunity to become an adult. And what I mean by that, from the time that you were a kid to the time you entered the military and you left the military, you've been given clothes, food, shelter, your medical's paid for, the insurance is paid for, and we make these transitions outbound. Those little nuances that have been taken care of for our entire adult life, they're sprung upon us. And a lot of times I see when I'm dealing with veterans, that's the hole that they start to spiral down. And the great things that each one of your companies are doing, I'm curious with the turnover or the you know, if there's something that we could pinpoint, are there problematic issues that you see in the veteran space that maybe we could start addressing in the DoD space? Because I know time frame when a service member's exiting, and you said the recruiting is a big problem. Some bases aren't letting you in because they need to hold on to those bodies, and I can appreciate that. But inevitably, we're going to get out, and it hurts my heart to see, because when Eli and Derek and myself jumped off the bullet train that we were riding on, it didn't even stop at the station. We literally had to jump off. No taps, no nothing. See you later. My uniforms are still in my locker. And they never looked back, you know. And we had to figure these things out. So I think my question is, one, is there this little focal point that we're missing that maybe we can handle on the DoD side that would assist you all? I'll start with that, and anybody can open up.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for you and your family service. What I would say is talking about transition earlier. We know it as soon as you join, you have an expiration date. You had your MRD. You know when you're getting out. Mine's 2042. And so I know that I'm going to get out of the military. Talk about it, understand it, realize it, internalize it, and bring it through into all the different phases of your career so that it doesn't punch you in the mouth. It's talking about, hey, these are things that are going to change. Talk about how you have to buy insurance. How expensive is insurance? And all the different facets that are going to
That never happens.
It doesn't.
I promise you. I was an enlisted and officer. This conversation just never came up, especially, and unfortunately I was injured. So my time frame got cut, and I just had to leave. So,
I would say, you know, one of the things that I feel we missed out on as we started after 9/11 is that we started to shrink down our training in non-commissioned officer courses and officer courses. And so one of the areas that I think we limited and we got rid of was the general studies portion of it, right? And we're in that portion of general studies. You know, as I was transitioning, I was like, what do I want to be when I grow up? I don't know what that's going to look like. I think about the month of general studies about Army effective writing or financial planning and all that. That stuff was really focused on occupational. And I think there's an opportunity that the military and you all can go back into and saying, you know, what are we doing to help them, again, left of transition, but through every point of training when it comes to professional development and even in counseling. So as you start your career and you end your career, you're already building that resume. You're already talking about the grown-up conversations that you talk about, right? And you're getting exposed to that in a training environment, because that's the one thing that we're really good at is training. So I think there's an opportunity right there, is in our academies and in our different professional development opportunities to add that in.
And sir, I'll just say that we have to start seeing employment, post-military service as this preservative benefit of transition. Because if you can take care of employment and find meaningful employment, a lot of the other more dangerous issues that some of our transitioning service members face are mitigated when they have good employment in a network. And I don't think the military sees it that way. And so we really have to work aggressively on this. And we also have to understand that some of these programs, even if they're for more senior enlisted and more senior officers, are really important if the service member has a family. Because if you have a family, your decision-making matrix looks a lot different than if you're going to go home and sit on mom's couch. And it doesn't mean that the other person doesn't have, real fears and concerns, but that person who has a family to take care of will take whatever job they can find, even if it creates long-term problems.
Do you have anything? I ran out of time, I know, I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Representative Budzinski.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Ranking Member. Thank you to the witnesses for joining us here today on this very important topic. I appreciate Chairman Bost giving us this opportunity with this hearing to highlight what businesses are doing for veteran employment as well as areas for improvement. My questions for you are really focused on STEM education and how we can expand those opportunities that currently exist or maybe new opportunities we could create for our veterans. I mentioned this at last week's HVAC education opportunity hearing, that veterans really do continue to face some significant challenges to employment and educational opportunities upon returning from service. Notably, these challenges are even bigger for student veterans in particular, which is the issue I spoke to, that are seeking education specifically in the STEM fields. Improving student access to STEM education is crucial for many reasons, including protecting our national security and expanding workforce across industries like healthcare, where we're seeing a severe shortage. That's why I've been proud to introduce the Veterans in STEM Expansion Act, which would improve access to the Edith Norris Rogers STEM Scholarship for student veterans in particular. I believe federal legislation like my bill, as well as the opportunity businesses offer, such as yours, are crucial to bridging the gaps for vets that we see in STEM fields. This leads me to my first question, really for all the panelists. I'm curious your observations and if you think there is a lack of STEM veteran graduate available, do you think there is a lack of STEM veteran graduates available to hire? And what are your businesses doing to improve these opportunities for our veterans? And maybe I could start with Mr. Jones, if you wouldn't mind.
Madam Congresswoman, I'm sorry. So some of the things we have is Live Better You, I talked about. We also have our Find a Future platform. So our Find a Future platform acts as kind of like a career services for those personnel and understanding the gaps that are in the industry and what skills that may be best suited for you. And so we do push STEM as part of those opportunities where we have underrepresentation from a skill set in our company. And so that's some of the ways that we do that.
Great. Any other panelists? Yeah.
I'd love to speak about that. Yeah, so we've talked a lot about what Home Depot does to hire veterans, but we also have programs, as I mentioned earlier, to help get more people into the construction sector and fill the skilled labor gap, as you just mentioned. So getting that information into the hands of these separating service members early enough so that they're aware there's a skill bridge program for construction or that these jobs are out there and available is really critical, and we could use the help.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for your work in this space. Finding opportunities for service members, and we talked about junior enlisted, traditionally aggregate over into colleges. And so it's finding ways to engage them where they're at, providing these understanding of how do you take this degree and turn it into this job. And talking about that is one of the things that we do when we engage our student veteran population. There's over 750,000 student veterans. There's almost 90,000 in California's community college system alone. So we're working to make sure that we meet them where we are and help talk about how to get a real job.
That's excellent. Great.
Thank you for the question. I've seen across corporate America, especially over the last 5 or 6 years, that companies are investing heavily in STEM training programs, not only for military service members and military spouses, but all their employees. The one thing that we've seen, and we work very closely with companies like Salesforce and manage Google's Career Forward program, which provides training for veterans and military spouses, is that even with those degrees and certifications, getting a job without relevant work experience is really difficult. And so we're firm believers that even, the investment in training is critically important, but we also need investments in bridges, experiential bridges, like internships to help ensure that they get the skill sets and then they get the job, which is critically important.
That's a great point. Okay. Could I actually stay with you, Mr. Eversole, just for some follow-up questions? I appreciate the significance of the Hiring Our Heroes program and understand you all partner with other businesses, including some here, to engage veteran talent. From your experience in the program and in your work, what do you think are some of the ways the federal government and industry partners can improve future partnerships to expand access to STEM education for veterans, building on what's been discussed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that question. I think it's critically important in the first instance to understand where a lot of our service members are coming from a background and a socioeconomic perspective. For me personally, even though I retired as a Navy captain, neither of my parents graduated from high school. I grew up in a small town in Indiana. And my dad said, go to college or join the military. And I did both, but finding a job and understanding how those skill sets transition is really difficult. And so we have to, and what does real economic opportunity look like in this country? And that's a real challenge with a lot of our service members. We have to help educate in the first instance what real economic opportunity and pathways into STEM look like and how they're attainable. For me, a job in the IT industry would have been the local high school computer lab. And that's not what it looks like at all today. And so we really have to make an investment in helping young Americans understand what those opportunities and pathways look like.
That's a great point. Great. And if I could also ask, similar to what Congressman Franklin asked, are there any additional barriers? Oh, I've run out of time.
Representative.
Yes, I'm out of time. Thank you so much. I yield back.
Representative Rosendale.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Before beginning public service, I owned a real estate land and development company, and when hiring employees in business and Congress, I sought out individuals who took initiative, were leaders, had a strong work ethic, worked well within a team, were critical thinkers, possessed emotional intelligence, and could handle stress. I found that through their service, veterans often have acquired all these important skills and make for great employees. Unfortunately, on a larger scale, these skills that veterans have acquired through service do not always translate easily to professional success. Veterans are 37% more likely to be underemployed than non-veterans. Glad to hear the employment numbers are actually going up, but I'm sorry to hear about how many of them are underemployed. This statistic is very concerning, but I do believe we can fix it. The Transition Assistance Program attempts to provide pointers, including building a resume and interviewing tips. However, I've heard from veterans across Montana that the Transition Assistance Program is not adequate and more focused on checking a box than helping soon-to-be veterans find meaningful employment. I appreciate the committee's focus on improving the Transition Assistance Program so that it actually translates into material progress for our veterans. Ms. Eisen, in your testimony, you mentioned that the Home Depot Military Fellowship Program. This is an innovative 12-week cohort program that provides transition assistance where each fellow has a host team and veteran mentor. Can you talk more about the successes of that program?
Sure, I'd love to do that. So we have a Skill Bridge program. We also partner with Hiring Our Heroes. We've had over 150, and 100 of those in the last year, so it's a building program. And they're in areas corporate, such as project managers, analytics, logistics, talent acquisition, HR. We have them in IT, and so cyber, developers, tech, even tech support for junior enlisted. And then we have them in retail out in our stores and in our supply chain for supervisor level experience. And so when we bring them into our 11-week program, they get one-on-one coaching. Someone from our military relations team meets with them on a weekly basis. And so I feel it's really important. We were talking about what can you do left of transition, but right of transition, driving the camaraderie. Veterans come from a place where they're surrounded by people that are service-minded and have been through a lot of the same things they are, and then they're thrown into a civilian population that doesn't understand them anymore. And so when we take these fellows and then pair them with other veterans at the Home Depot for their 11-week program, they get the taste of what it means to work right of transition and what it means to wear business casual clothes or how you can take your lunch whenever you want to. Like, it's the very simple things, and we giggle, but it's true that that's the stuff that they don't understand and don't know who to ask. So that fellowship program has been great for giving them a taste of what civilian work looks like. And then over 80% of them have come to work for us. So it works really well as a trainer for us and also for the transitioning service members.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, they're not used to that because they're accustomed to having Mr. Van Orden barking at them to make sure they get their daily tasks done. You also spoke about the Home Depot Military Spouse Job Transfer Program. We spoke about it a little bit earlier. That it guarantees the existing employee at a new store to must move to accommodate the spouse's orders. I really like that a lot. Approximately how many spouses have benefited from this program?
That is a great question, and I unfortunately don't have an answer because they're transferring across lines and managed by the team that has them to the team that takes them, and so we ask them to let us know, but they typically don't. We have a challenge. We track military spouses in Workday, which is our HR system. But similar to what veterans do sometimes, they don't want to self-disclose because they think it could impact their career, their potential for being promoted if somebody knows they might leave in a couple of years. So we don't even have, even though we try to track it, we don't have great data on military spouses or when they move. We know it's working. I have lots of stories. We get great anecdotes from the field, but I can't give you a statistic for how many.
So if you're not able to track that, then my follow-up to that was going to be, are you tracking the spouses that move to another location if they're taking advantage of the program? And if they're not, okay, so they start off at X store and they move to another. If you're not tracking that, then you're also not able to track why they're not taking advantage of it if in fact they do not when they go to the other store, or are they taking advantage of that?
I think a lot of it happens because our Home Depot has a culture of doing the right thing. So I think, quite honestly, without a policy, our stores, just because of our culture, would already be doing that. So we only hear about it when it goes wrong. And quite frankly, I don't think I've had a time when we've had it go wrong. We did want to formalize the policy so that it's on paper and we have a process that they can follow, especially if they're going somewhere where there's not a base or they're going somewhere where a position doesn't exist. We have different processes to kind of follow when that happens. But I will also mention it's not just for the people that are out in the field. We also have things like our customer care call centers. So that's a remote job. We have 5,000 remote jobs. So we work to place them in. We have apprenticeships and things like that within some of the remote jobs as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yield back.
Representative Chevalier McCormick.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for holding this hearing today, ensuring that we can connect our veterans to economic opportunities and also examine any of the blockades. My first question is to Mr. Eversoles. Thank you for your service. Your testimony mentioned that most military members begin to search for employment after leaving their services, forcing many of them to rely upon unemployment compensation. Many would spend months, if not years, trying to find the right career. The total amount of UCX compensation dropped from $966 million in 2011 to $111 million in 2022. Finding gainful employment before the service member transitions out, the military saves money. Can you describe what steps were taken between 2011 and 2022 to achieve these savings?
Thank you, Madam Congresswoman, for this question. It was a whole of the private and public sector working together to find meaningful solutions and making veterans a top priority. And a lot of that was really, in the initial years, was focused on triage and helping unemployed veterans. And as we started to really do better with unemployed veterans, really thinking strategically about how we help transitioning service left of their transition to think about career opportunities, to connect with military-ready companies, to receive the right training, to leverage SkillBridge. And so, and then the whole of government policy. Was really, I wouldn't say one thing that really caused the needle to move so much. It was the realization that we all had to work together to make the needle move, and that's what we did.
Thank you. My next question is for Mr. McCoy. I'm happy that you brought up SkillBridge. Thank you for your service and for being here today. Your testimony mentions that Verizon and the Department of Defense SkillBridge, where you provided separate military personnel with civilian work experience through internships and training during their last 180 days of service. Can you talk about how many veterans take advantage of SkillBridge through Verizon?
Yes, thank you for the question. We get a lot of interest. The work that Mr. Jones did to establish the Verizon program for the last 10 years has been well known and well recognized, and so we get a lot of interest. We require that the business have some type of headcount to be able to host and to hire them at the end of this so that there is a successful work opportunity at the end of that training. And so we've been able to host 215 service members and military spouses through our program, hiring 183 of those individuals.
And now, do you have a breakdown of the veterans who use SkillBridge program by racial, ethnic, or even sexual orientation demographics?
We have some of those, not all of those.
Will we be able to get a copy of that just to make sure everyone is taking advantage of this program?
Yes.
Thank you so much. And then, Mr. McCoy, prior to coming to Congress, I was CEO of a company that recruited and retained top talent, was always our focus. How has Verizon worked to recruit and retain veterans?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We work really hard to make sure we encourage first self-identification, because if we don't know you're there, we can't include you in messaging. This week, there's lots of opportunities. I was able to give out 148 tickets to NFL Salute to Service games for opportunities to unfurl the flag at stadiums. I was able to invite service members across New York City and San Diego to participate in parades. While those are the really fun ones, we're also there to reach out to and connect. If you don't have your military badge on your profile, you maybe don't know that that person has some shared experiences. And it's building that camaraderie. You know, we've all talked about that. That shared sense of service brings us all together, the experiences that we've had, and we make sure that we do that. We recruit them to self-identify, and then we encourage them to self-identify once they become an employee to help them be retained and engaged.
This is a general question. It's my last. What could Congress do to help you retain and identify more talented veterans? It's for anybody.
The TAP program would help us recruit more, expanding the impact, the ability to add virtual connections. We talked about junior service members moving from one side of the country to the other. Right now, if you don't physically have a presence there to show up to attend those TAP events, they might not know about the Verizon opportunities in California as they move from the East Coast to the West Coast or vice versa. We want to be where we can be, as many places as we can, but virtualizing some of those opportunities would help us deliver our information and share those opportunities more broadly, because as we've all alluded to, they're an elusive creature, that veteran.
And I'll just second what he said, because having a consolidated resource to be able to talk to people, because we're a small team, like military relations at the Home Depot, we're small but mighty, but we can't be everywhere. So when there's local bases doing local things, we can't always make it there. So having some way to, and central to be able to talk to people separating would be fantastic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Representative Sell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope I'm not replowing old ground. Now that we're back to regular legislative business, we do have to juggle committees. But I do want to explore your access to bases that I heard in your opening remarks. The 180 days under SkillBridge, how many of your applicants actually get the 180 days? What percentage? Any idea? And we'll just go down the line.
Thank you, Mr. Congressman, all the way.
Airborne.
Cool. So I think I would say that they enter in 180 days, but we probably don't get them we probably only get them for about 90 of those days due to the limitations that we have from the fellowship program. From a SkillBridge standpoint, I think there's a little bit more flexibility there. But when you start working about SkillBridge, now it's a command to organization relationship that you have to work with. And so I think that's where the opportunity is. What has benefited us from the fellowship program is that it's housed in a relationship, a memorandum of agreement is housed at HOH. And so we don't have to work with that individual chain of command on that. And so I think there's an opportunity there. But I don't think I'd say probably about 90% of them are not maximizing the 180 days.
And that's because of their command?
I would say they're limited to that, or they're unaware of the Skill Bridge program or the fellowship program, to be frankly.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McCoy?
Thank you for the question. We also don't see service members taking 180 days. It is one of the things that we look at is we try to put them in on the back end so that we can hire them immediately, so there's not a gap. We take advantage of 90.
I'll reiterate what my partner at Walmart said. I think the bigger problem is being aware of the program and then getting approval on the front end to participate in the program. Generally, once they make it to us and they're a couple weeks in, we've had a couple get pulled back, but they're pretty committed at that point. The bigger problem is especially in the junior enlisted ranks, getting the approval to participate up front.
So you see an obstacle in the command approval process?
Correct.
With that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Representative McCarvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you guys all so much for being here. Really appreciate the work you all are doing to highlight the importance of veterans coming back in and having jobs in our community. So I'm excited about this hearing. I want to highlight the need to have our veterans come home to jobs with dignity and good pay. And so while we're talking about that, though, let's talk about our veterans and specifically right now. We know that almost 500,000 vets pay more than 50% of their income for rent. There is still food insecurity that's a major problem. The Department of Labor just released in their October jobs report that 8.4 million workers are working multiple jobs now. So when we look at our vets, we know that our vets don't just deserve jobs, they deserve careers. We're talking dignified, good paying work, opportunities for growth. So I want to drill into this a little bit when we talk about the jobs veterans are getting. Mr. Jones, I know we'll start with you. Walmart has done an amazing job, 530,000 veterans hired over the last decade. That includes military spouses. I mean, that's a huge number. My brother is still active duty right now, so I can tell you, grateful to the commitment to hiring veterans. But I'd like to get a better sense of what that number means in reality. So let's say you're a recently separated junior NCO. What's the starting salary? Are they earning minimum wage, just above it? What kind of job is that person getting at Walmart?
Mr. Congressman, thank you very much. Great question. I think it's a diversity. We don't limit where your entry point is. Our goal is to meet that person where they are in their transition. And if that means right now, that's working in our store as a cashier because that's what's right for their career, and we give them experience to our Live Better You to educate and upskill, then we want to make sure that they're gainfully employed and that they have income coming in. That's the first and prominent. We don't want them unemployed. Second, we found that they advance very quickly through the ranks. And so we're not limited to frontline workers. We have personnel through our entire organization. We are a self-sustaining organization, just like the military. And so giving them that exposure to understand where they can be or where they're at is something that we really take pride in focusing on. So there is no limitation to where they start in the company. We hope that they're working in jobs that are equivalent to what they've worked in, but we know that not all skills, hard skills will transfer, but soft skills definitely will.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting into that just a little bit more, you mentioned LBU, which I want to ask about because we talk about this idea of jobs versus careers. We know that Walmart has promoted 63,000 of that 530,000 number. That includes veterans. It also includes military spouses, as we've talked about, so I don't have a breakout of that. But that's about 12% of those veterans have received promotions. How many are taking advantage of LBU and the programs that you're working on? What does that potential for promotion look like?
I don't have the exact number, sir. I will tell you that early on, as soon as they're onboarded, that is the first thing that they're eligible for. So from day one, they're eligible for, tuition assistance for free from LBU. So I don't have that number. I can follow up with that number. But they're eligible, and we over-communicate that through our performance agreements all throughout the year. Every time there's an opportunity to talk about how to career progress, that's an opportunity to speak about that.
And I appreciate that because one of the things we're looking at here is how can we help, right? How can we help in this? And when we look at apprenticeships, when we look at on-the-job training, We know that DOL Vets program connects vets with apprenticeship programs, and that program's led to good outcomes. But last week we had a subcommittee hearing where we noted that less than 2% of post 9/11 GI Bill recipients use that on-the-job training program. I was wondering if you were having more success with that, which is why I was asking about LBU in there. Just a little bit of time left, so I'll go to Mr. Eversole. I do believe in the apprenticeship model. I do want our veterans to have good jobs, good paying careers that they can get into when they leave. What more can be done to increase the involvement of veterans in registered apprenticeships? What can employers do, and what can we do in Congress? And you get the last 30
Thank you,
seconds.
sir, for that question. Apprenticeships are critically important for our service members, much like SkillBridge. We have to do a better job of communicating those opportunities beforehand and leveraging things like SkillBridge as a pre-apprenticeship that then transition into a full-time apprenticeship. So this is a function of communication, and the Department of Labor, this is an area where the apprenticeships have grown significantly and benefited our veterans and their families incredibly.
Thank you guys for what you do. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Representative Van Orton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Eisen, although I am not a Purple Heart recipient, I want you to take this back to your bosses and say thank you for having Purple Heart specific parking spaces in front of your stores. I mean, I know that just seems like it's nothing, but to me that is an incredibly powerful gesture. So thank you for that. Mr. Rosendale was referring to me yelling at people. It's part of my nature as a senior enlisted guy, first sergeant, you know what I'm talking about. Could you give me, anybody here, list of specific bases that are not allowing you access? And the reason I ask this is because I learned in the military when a letter shows up from a congressional office, which it will to the base commander if they're not allowing you access, I would like specifics. I know we speak in generalities lots of times, but we will type that letter up and I will get an answer immediately because that is wholly unacceptable. Captain, what has your experience been with DOL Vets and their Disabled Veteran Outreach Program offices?
Thank you for that question, sir. I do not have any specific knowledge of their the Department of Labor's vets disabled outreach efforts, so I'll respectfully decline to do that. But I am on the, in full disclosure, on the Federal Advisory Committee for the Department of Labor Vets. I know that from the Department of Labor and that committee's perspective, making sure that our disabled vets have the right resources and tools to be successful is a top priority and certainly something that we as a Federal Advisory Committee talk about all the time.
Okay, thank you. First Sergeant?
And sir, I think...
First Sergeant.
First Sergeant.
My bad.
Sir, I think one of the biggest opportunities is working with the DevOps and leavers in each of the career one-stop offices. So as a best practice, those are some of the things that we train our recruiters on and working out when we do outreach.
And so you're intimately familiar with these programs?
Yes, sir.
And how often do you use them, and what's your throughput, would you say, of troops?
In my current role, I'm new to Walmart. I've been here for about 70 days, but in my previous work, I'd say on average, we would outreach to them once a month, just ongoing communications about opportunities that are available in those communities. And I think instead of looking at it from a national level, I mean, really focusing at the county level is really important because they have a good understanding of the skills of those personnel, what their needs and resources are. And so if they have a disability, we can work directly with them ahead of time being hired to work with our accommodations team to identify those things.
Very well. Mr. McCoy?
And thank you for the question. Thank you for your service. Tommy was my boss, so he trained me on how to do this. So we still do that. We set up regular.
Sorry, is someone pinging for a submarine back there? Okay, thanks.
We reach out to them based on the geographic location, like you mentioned. We make sure that we empower the non-military recruiting team to understand what do these organizations do, what are these opportunities to engage with them. We host information sessions with them, and we're regularly outreaching and try to get as many veterans to apply as we can.
Very well. And then I have a minute 30 left. Ma'am, are you familiar with these guys?
I'm not eminently familiar with those programs. I would say that we treat our disabled veterans the way we treat all of our disabled associates, and we have processes to make sure we do the right thing for them. As a company, we do focus on disabled veterans and helping them through the foundation investment I mentioned earlier of $500 million to veterans causes. One of the things that we do is help critically wounded veterans have living spaces that work for them. There's an example in the testimony that I have on file with groups like Gary Sinise Foundation and groups like that. We outfit their homes to make sure that they have the appropriate living spaces.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to take a couple seconds to thank you all very much. I am the chairman of the subcommittee responsible for the Transition Assistance Program. And Mr. Levin, who had to go to another committee hearing, is the ranking member. And I want you to know we're working very, very hard, and we put our veterans first. So if there's anything, you don't have to wait for a congressional hearing. If you guys have any ideas how to make this transition period more useful, I'd like you to reach out directly to my office, because as we know, that 24-month window from the time you take off your uniform is when, unfortunately, a lot of our veterans commit suicide because you lose your rank and your status and your uniform, and twice the husband, half the paycheck, that sort of stuff. So please feel free to reach out directly to me at any point that you know what I'm talking about. And just God bless you and your families and your work. Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Mr. Mervan, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
I just wanted to take a moment. I realize it's about employment, but with Home Depot, I was a local elected official, worked with Jim Chancellor, who's an advocate for veterans. And Home Depot, on 2 occasions, donated goods for a VSO, for a DAV, for a roof, and then their employees came out and did the roof. And then for another home for transition for homeless veterans, they supplied all the goods and the windows. So I thank you, and I'm not picking and choosing winners, but I'm giving you personal experience on the overreaching value of your organizations with veterans and their families. And that being said, the period of transitioning out of the military is an extremely stressful time. Service members are balancing their responsibilities to military while figuring out where they're going to live, find a job, or enroll in school. The bare minimum our military services should provide is a comprehensive readout of the skills and experiences of service member and how these skills and experiences qualify the individual for certain jobs in the civilian workplace. However, this is not the case, and only the most basic summary of services is provided. In the effort to facilitate a smoother transition of military personnel into civilian employment, what specific measures or initiatives do you believe employers can recommend to the military that would help improve the process of transitioning or translating military skills and experiences into valuable assets into the civilian job market?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for your work in this space. One of the things that we see in the civilian side is certifications. The military is a heavy training organization, but we do not provide certifications for the skills and experiences that you learn. You're not getting an ISC squared CISSP certification for going to a communication school. Implementing some of the rigors of civilian certification processes could help with that transition, because you understand your skills and experience that transition directly into requirements that are written in job descriptions. That would help. It could be portable across state lines, and it could be easily implemented.
Sir, I would just add, we understand the importance of that at Walmart. Our foundation has focused on creating transition tools or focusing on skills with some of our nonprofits to help with that translation of skills and identifying those areas and allowing them to be available to them so they understand where they are a fit. So working through the Manufacturing Institute or with Hire Heroes to create a taxonomy of where they can map into jobs directly from their military transcripts into Walmart is what we're really focusing on, and that's underway right now.
Okay. I guess just to take it one step farther, how are you communicating with the DoD to make sure that those skill sets are being administered on their end prior to?
So it's a public partnership. We're working with Mill Gears and Cools through that communication. So as they're starting to identify and need their transcript, their military transcripts, that's where they can do it. We also sit on boards with the Department of Labor and Chamber of Commerce to communicate what we're working on with that, and that's really how the message is getting out, sir.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I yield back.
Representative Siscomani, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for coming before the committee to testify. Companies across the United States are working hard to support our brave men and women who have served our country and protected our freedoms. Before we reschedule this hearing, my constituent Lauren Daughtery, who is a small business owner in Tucson, Arizona, was set to participate in this hearing. I want to take a moment to thank her for her willingness to participate in the legislative process and for her hard work and dedication serving our nation. Lauren now owns and runs a small business, Cracked Armor Roasting Company, while attending school and also raising a family. Now, Mr. Jones, the Walmart Foundation is something this committee sees as a unique program to help small businesses like Lauren's around the country grow. What impact has the foundation had on veteran-owned small businesses?
Thank you, Mr. Congressman. Obviously, we have our open call. You all are familiar with that. And a part of that commitment, we committed to spend $350 billion over 10 years in items made and assembled in the United States. And we're really focused on veteran-owned business as well. So we just had that last week where we had our open call. One of those businesses is Grind Oral Care, sells U.S.-made toothpaste, but it's a veteran-owned business. They came to our open call and they received the golden ticket, and we're continuing to do that. So in the future, we look to work with IVMF to focus on what are the areas of opportunity for veteran entrepreneurs that needed help and where are they lacking resources. And so we're going to come together and formulate a panel in conjunction with the Certified Veteran-Owned Business Coalition to work on that, sir.
That's great. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help on that as well. I think that's a great effort. Very interested in helping out in whatever way we can. You know, my district in CD6 in Arizona, in southeastern corner of Arizona, it's home to about 70,000 veterans, a little over 70,000 veterans. So all these things are highly important. With our veterans also come their families and those that are in service now, but also our veterans. So they deserve all the support and resources the government can provide as they transition from service life to civilian life. But we cannot do this alone, and that is why the work our businesses are doing to support and attract veterans and their families also is so important. So to all the witnesses, could you please speak briefly to the initiatives and programs your organizations provide for service members, spouses, and families as well? And what opportunities do they have, and what benefits are they provided as well?
I'll start on this one. So I talked previously a lot about the military spouse transfer program and how we have remote work capabilities for the military spouse career, so I'll set that aside. But we also try to make sure that we take care of the whole family. So when you move a long way, you arrive somewhere new and you need childcare. And so we have resources to help you find local childcare. You need new doctors, so we have resources that help you find new doctors in your area. You probably are stressed out, so we have 24/7 counseling available for you. So it's also the softer side. It's not just the career, but the softer side of what comes along with the move and the stress of a deployment. And then we also have guides and things that when a service member deploys that works for the Home Depot, or as a guardsman who takes time away, we have guides that tells the stores or their managers what to do during that time. So at 60 days, you should send a letter. At 6 months, you need to check in on the family. At holidays, be sure you reach out, which sounds so simple, but when you're busy and you're a leader in a store, you're not thinking about what you can do to help those families. So guides like that are so simple can be so impactful to make sure we're taking care of the whole family.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We do a lot of the similar things. We're working with our team members to make sure that we know, hey, when somebody goes out, we reach out to them, we send them care packages, we send them letters. We do a lot of letter writing across our entire organization to make sure that the deployed service member, as well as the spouse and the family left home, are engaged and retained and just part of the community that is Verizon's family. So we do a lot of that work. We also have portability of careers. We also help with transitioning across different career areas with upskilling through our tuition assistance program, but also our internal certification programs.
Thank you.
Sir, all the same. The only thing to add on, and I know these organizations do the same, is our associate resource group or employee resource group engagement. And then during the onboarding process, making them aware of what's available to them from a benefit standpoint. And so we do a really good job of that. And then just following up through our employee resource groups or associate resource groups as companies. I think that's the biggest thing.
Thank you.
We're focused on employment. We have to ebb the 21% unemployment that military spouses are facing and really help the families have the income they need to be successful.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Chair, you go back.
You, and now I recognize the gentlewoman from the other part of Illinois, Representative Ramirez.
Thank you, Chairman Bost. I also echo my colleagues' sentiments, thanking every witness that's here today. We know that high-quality, good-paying jobs provide veterans access to safe and stable housing. Right now, our nation is facing a housing crisis. In my city of Chicago, the part of the state I'm in, rent has gone up by 5.7% in certain parts of the city. Some communities are reporting that veterans and others are having to now pay sometimes even 30% more when they're having to renew their lease. And instead of passing critical legislation to fully fund and meet our nation's housing needs, today, when we go into the chamber, we're going to be voting on an appropriations bill that will cripple vital housing efforts by cutting billions from federal programs for rental assistance and the construction of new affordable housing units. I think it's imperative that we continue to prioritize housing as a human right, including, especially for our veterans. And I know we may not be able to fix the housing crisis today and certainly in this hearing now, but I know we can take one important step by ensuring that veterans have jobs with living wages that allow them to stay afloat with a safe roof over their heads. So just talking a little bit more about housing, this is a question for Ms. Eisen, and I guess also for Verizon and Walmart. Do you hire veterans that are experiencing homelessness?
Of course, we don't distinguish based on where you live.
Great. And do you keep track? Yeah, go ahead. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. And I assume you work with them, of course. And so what would you say, do you keep track of how many veterans who you are hiring are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness?
We have enough trouble even tracking who the veterans are. They don't want to tell us. So I would imagine getting a veteran to tell us that they're also homeless would be a very difficult thing. I will say at the Home Depot, we have what's called the Homer Fund, and it is our employee assistance program. It's our internal charity that is funded by our associates for our associates that helps people just like the situation you're talking about when they get down on hard times, somebody gets sick, somebody passes away. This organization steps in to help with that. So it would certainly be the case now that the person's working for us if we realize that they were down on their luck in that way.
And so at orientation, is there an opportunity for employees to know about these programs should they need them? Okay,
Absolutely.
Great. So I want to now talk a little bit about diversity and certainly the diversity that exists within our veteran community. In this committee, one of my priorities has been amplifying and advocating for women veterans, disabled veterans we've been talking about today, and veterans of color. I know that they're a critical part of the veteran community, and often they go unrecognized. So this is a question, yes or no, I think, across the board for all of you. Do you have programs that are tailored specifically to women veterans, disabled veterans, or people of color? And I'll start with you.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Eisen? No, okay. And let me ask a follow-up question. Do your organizations keep track of demographic information, included but not limited to gender and race of the veterans utilizing your programs?
Yes.
Okay. Through the what?
Through our ESG report?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, and our fellowship is 72% diverse.
Okay. So numbers and data can shed light on who is being unintentionally left out or who can be better served. So when organizations produce their ESG or their diversity, equity, and inclusion reports, it is vital that veterans are included in all that data. And I'd be interested in hearing, and this could be an answer from any of you, particularly those with specialized programs, what are some of the greatest needs you're hearing from some of these communities? Either of you can answer and what we have left.
I think one of the biggest things that we see, everybody keeps saying this, is self-identification. We see women veterans are one of the least likely groups to self-identify. There's a variety of different reasons that go behind that, but making sure that they understand that it's a safe opportunity for them, that they're not going to be put in a position where, hey, you have to self-identify or you don't have to self-identify. It's 100% a choice. And so we want to make sure that the opportunities that we create for female veterans are unique and they are specialized to them. Sorry.
Did anyone else want to answer? Okay. I would just emphasize, I think it's really important as we hear from a lot of our veterans who won't self-identify, who, of course, it's the same we see even in school when trying to get data of how many families are experiencing homelessness, that we have different efforts and resources to help identify those needs, because you're going to see that impact in the workforce. You're going to see that in their performance. And certainly for our veterans who have other things that are happening, it's important to be able to tailor programming and provide that outreach. So I would love to, particular programs that you have, if you can send that information over, it would be really helpful. I had just one last question, and this just goes following up on the TAP program. I heard you saying virtualizing the program. Is there anything else you think that we could be doing to make the TAP program more effective?
Centralizing points of contact.
Got it. Thank you. I yield back. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. The gentlewoman yields back. And this panel, we want to say thank you for being here today. I think there was a great amount of information that was given to us. We appreciate that. And we let this panel be dismissed, and we'll set up for the next panel.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to now introduce our second panel, if I can. First off, let me say to our second panel, thank you for sitting through the long questions of the first panel. Let me also say we're hoping to get your information and your statements, and the advantage of that is we won't be asking you a lot of questions because right now it looks like about two of us against you, and not against you, but for you. First we have Mr. Joe Gilardi.
Gilardi, sir.
Gilardi. and he's President Chief Executive Officer of Victorna LLC, correct? All right. And then also, we have Mr. Chris Maynor, owner of Daniel Dean's Clothing Store. I want to welcome you both, but I want to say a special welcome to Chris and Chelsea to Washington, D.C. To talk about veteran small businesses, employment issues. They own and operate a store that is actually in my hometown, right across the street from our own business. And in Daniel Dean's is where you can purchase a wide range of clothing and outdoor accessories and through their small business. And Chris and Chelsea are active in helping veterans within the community throughout the services and building the connections with local veterans organizations. It's a pleasure to see them to do this work and what they're already doing in Murfreesboro and helping our local community. This commitment is excited to hear about, and we want to continue to grow veteran-owned small businesses across the country. I want to thank you both for being here today, and then we're looking forward to your testimony. So with that, I will have you both stand if I can. Do you solemnly swear under penalty of perjury that your testimony you are about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated and let the records reflect that all witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Mr. Gilardi, you are now recognized for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Bost, esteemed committee members. Thank you for this platform to discuss the pivotal role of veterans and veteran entrepreneurship in our nation's economy and security. Having served with exemplary veterans throughout my own 23-year Navy career, most of the time was spent flying F-14 Tomcats and F-18 Hornets before founding Victorna. Throughout that time, I witnessed firsthand veterans' unwavering dedication and integrity, and these qualities remain intact as they transition to civilian life, enriching our businesses and communities. Veteran entrepreneurs employ nearly 6 million American workers and generate about $1.2 trillion in annual revenue, businesses large and small. Veterans represent just 2.3% of the workforce, but veteran businesses account for an oversized 7.3% of the U.S. private sector economy. This isn't just a statistic, it's a testament to their indomitable spirit and the value they add post-service, including the experience and mission insight that they bring to critically needed in the Department of Defense. However, as Secretary of Defense Austin observed earlier this year in his small business strategy, the participation of small business in the defense industrial base has declined by over 40% in the past decade, and the number of small businesses receiving contract awards has dropped by more than half. While the Secretary's initiatives to provide new training resources is commendable, his observations reflect a dire need to reform not small business training, but our approach to acquisitions. Acquisition professionals need more education to better understand how their decisions, policies, and processes create increasing barriers to success that hurt veteran entrepreneurs and professionals, the warfighter, and the nation as a whole. Our veterans find themselves up against a burgeoning regulatory maze that can be discouraging and disheartening, and stifles the very innovation we need to maintain our technological edge. Take Section 174 of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, for instance, which effectively penalizes veteran small businesses for tackling our nation's most challenging technology needs. General Brown, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, previously challenged the Air Force to accelerate change or lose in the face of growing peer threats. But left unchecked, Section 174 is a massive speed brake on veteran participation in small business innovation research and puts our competitive edge at risk. Other programs intended to level playing field for all, such as the Alaska Native Corporation program, makes it much harder for veteran businesses to compete by giving ANCs nearly 20 times the contracting power of other small businesses. The transition from active duty life to civilian life to participate in business, in the economy, is fraught with challenges. Existing transition programs miss the mark because information and assistance often comes too late in the process, and training is often out of touch with current private sector business practices. To remedy this, we must revamp transition programs to be more adaptable to service members' unique needs and schedules and be more reflective of the differences between military and business culture. Transition challenges are not just about the economics, they're also about the human cost. Without adequate support, pressure on our veterans can lead to heightened emotional stress and financial insecurity, which exacerbates mental health issues and substance abuse, in some cases resulting in a veteran suicide rate of 22 per day. A national tragedy that speaks volumes about the urgency of improving our support infrastructure and transition programs. Robust support is essential not just for the well-being of veterans, but also for businesses and the nation that depends on them. By equipping veterans with the tools for success in the business world, we honor their service and encourage future generations to serve, knowing that their skills and sacrifices will be valued both in and out of uniform. Veterans lead in combat, in business, in innovation, and in government. I urge this committee to champion reforms that will empower veterans to contribute further to our nation through entrepreneurship and innovation. By doing so, we not only repay our debt of gratitude, but we also invest in the very fabric of our nation's future. Thank you for your unwavering support to veterans, and I look forward to supporting you in enacting meaningful changes.
Thank you, Mr. Girardi, for your testimony. Now, the written statement of Mr. Girardi will be entered into the hearing record. Mr. Maynard, you are now recognized for 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Chairman Boss, members of the committee, thank you for your opportunity today to provide my remarks for this critical issue. As a 15-year Army combat infantryman with 3 tours to Iraq, I never imagined myself opening a small business. For a large part of my life, I've had the opportunity of relying on my fellow comrades for support. My life changed once I got out of the service, transferring from military life to civilian life. I did not have a meaningful purpose in my life. If it was not for family and friends, I might have been one of those 22 veterans today. When we leave the service, you feel like you've lost a purpose you had in the military. In 2017, I married my wife, and she showed me that I did have a purpose, a drive to succeed, not only for myself and my family, but also my fellow comrades. I started back to school at John A. Logan College, receiving my degree in heating and air in 2018. I became an active member of the local VFW and moved all the way up in chairs to become district commander. About the same time, I took a job at John A. Logan College in the heating and air department. Between using my vacation and sick time for days off for PTSD reasons, or days with VFW events, or helping fight for my fellow veterans' benefits, I had no time for family or my 5 children. I mentioned many times to my wife that I would like to open a men's clothing store. I figured I'd open my own business, and I was having a difficult day with PTSD. I wouldn't risk losing my job, taking more time off. Finally, after some more convincing, my wife agreed, and time would start our own small business, a men's clothing store named Daniel Dean's. We wanted to open a store, offered varying men's clothing along with accessories like Hurricane Marsh, Burbalo, Jim's formal wear, and we aimed to create a place where men could physically interact with items to try on and be one of the local presence in the community. We quickly learned it was no walk in the park starting our own business. With all my struggles, TBI, PTSD, challenges left to my co-owner. She had multiple long hours, phone calls, countless emails back and forth with different companies searching for websites claiming to have knowledge for veterans starting small businesses. With not understanding any of the rules or regulations of all the programs, it became difficult to try to figure out we even qualify for any of them. We just stopped trying at the point we had to proceed opening a business with our own in our own pocket, putting us in debt. There is such a high demand for veterans trying to move forward in life, become business owners. They're trying to find new purpose in life after the military. Years ago, used to be more service officers, we knew everything there was to know about veteran benefits. Maybe if we took things back to those times and focused on getting more service officers out helping veterans, we might have more veteran-owned businesses. If we develop something for veterans to help other veterans, we might get a better turnout. I believe civilians do care about veterans, but they do not understand the bond of a veteran taking care of another veteran. There's no other stronger camaraderie. Veteran service officers are underpaid and overworked, and as a result of that reason, we don't have many left. If we must keep all resources for grants and funding opportunity on websites, I would like to recommend it be developed to present it in a way we say in the military, KISS, keep it stupid simple. A user-friendly website, 3 buttons, veterans, disabled veterans, women veterans. The user could easily click their category, fill out the application and the paperwork, and apply for grants and funding automatically. We appreciate your time today, giving me the opportunity to further discuss struggles for trying to open a veteran small business. Thank you. Chairman Boss, this concedes my testimony. Again, thank you for Ranking Member Takano and the opportunity to testify on this opportunity issue before the committee. I'm prepared to take any questions you committee members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Maynard. We are going to open it to questions now, and I'll take the first 5 minutes. So as a veteran yourself, Mr. Maynard, what do you think the barriers that still exist in hindering veteran employment opportunities or their opportunity to start new businesses?
The information for the veterans to find, it's still difficult. It's not easily out there for them.
Okay. When Daniel Dean's, and I know you just opened in September, what were some of the barriers that you faced at the beginning of trying to get it open, and what are some of the barriers you're facing now that you're open?
Well, we looked into getting grants to help us, and we couldn't find any. One website, we called them, and they was like, well, it's on the website, figure it out. And that shouldn't be the case.
Right.
But so we just started funding ourselves, so we put ourselves in debt now, and we're trying to get out, but we're also trying to grow, so that would be.
You're also still trying to keep up with, both you and your wife are keeping up with jobs on your own besides owning the business, correct?
I still work at the college at nighttime on second shift. My wife does a lot of it. I work during the day, and then I go right back to work at nighttime, and then also trying to spend time with 5 children.
Well, in your testimony, you mentioned that when you left the military and transitioned into civilian life, you did not know the meaning of life. We are happy, first off, to have you sitting here before us today and that you're representing small businesses. What the other concerns that I think we need to put on record, you say looking for grants, are there, and you were talking about VSOs, do VSOs have the access to know and understand what helps small businesses or not? I know you're involved with them pretty heavy.
Yes,
so.
I believe they all have it, but I think it's more of a state level VSO jobs, and other than just relying on the American Legion or the VFW to help that VSO. The VSOs, you know, when you return to Illinois, they help you sign up for the free hunting license, or if you're at a certain disability rating, they help you sign up for that stuff. That should be an office we should just be able to walk right into, either your local courthouse or one of the National Guard units where there's a person there to help you out. Just like there's a recruiter there to sign you up, there should be something to help you transit it out.
I'm going to ask you something from your level at the VSOs. Have we seen a reduction in rural areas in the amount of VSOs that are out in the rural areas that could provide for that?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, the VSO the VFW had in Marion committed suicide, so we're down to one for the American Legion, one only by appointments, and our state level, she's working 3 counties. So it's very.
So that's a hindrance not only to small business, but that's also a hindrance to other things that VSOs provide for and counsel on.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I want to say thank you for you being here today. And one other thing I wanted to bring up, and I was wishing that Mr. Crane had not left the room because I just wanted to bring up the fact that, he has a veteran small, Eli Crane, our member, he has a veteran small business, and they make little things like this that are just fantastic, and they're veterans. So I gave these away whenever I was running for ranking member, and his business, and I hope that his testimony will be given later on to explain how he found a way to become the entrepreneur that he is with his small business as well. So we wish you luck with that, and I will yield back the balance of my time, and Mr. Mervan, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up with one other question on the ability or the availability to resources for you. So I'm going to mention a couple specific to see if you are aware, just for our knowledge. When it came to accessing capital, was there any access either through the SBA or through DOLVETs, Veterans Business Outreach Centers, or the Veterans Lending Program at your bank or financial institution?
Sir, we come from a small community and did not know anything of that.
Okay. And then, so in order to put it together, you depended on your own resources. Have you heard of, or is there anything that advances any type of assistance going forward as a veteran for small businesses that you have been aware of?
No, sir, but we've been reaching out to other veteran businesses and trying to grow with them and offer their products in our store and try to, I get phone calls all the time from local veterans, one's trying to start up a car cleaning business and another one's starting up a coffee business. And they're asking me, where do I go to these grants? And I'm like, I'm not sure, but as soon as I find out, I'm gonna get it to you.
So it doesn't go unnoticed because we're here to learn from your experience. When you said you went on a website and then you contacted them and they said what's on the website is what's available, can you share what the website was?
That would have been my wife that did that because I don't have the patience half the time when it comes to that.
Fair enough.
I'm a hard charger, so it's for a veteran that, with fighting PTSD and TBI and all that, it shouldn't be so hard to look for veteran benefits. It shouldn't be dingled in front of us, here's this, or not even know about it, because I believe that we need to come up with a way to help our veterans, especially in small communities.
And I think every member who sits here who protects and advances veteran benefits want to make sure that it's not a facade, that they exist so that they have a purpose. So your message is loud and clear, and we can do our best to be able to take that experience that you had to be able to translate that to the VA and VA benefits who provide those. How do we get to rural areas? How, when people are discharged, do they get that information? And so there is a benefit to you being here, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, I yield back.
General Berkman, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to get just a quick demographics of the both of you. How many years active duty?
14 years.
23, sir.
Okay. So what I heard you say, Mr. Maynor, was, just want to make sure I got this right. On the VSO piece, more state level? I wanted just to give you a chance to expand on that a little bit about what you meant.
So usually Veterans Affairs is through the state level who hires, I believe, I mean, don't hold me true to it, but I believe that's a state department job. So the state, like the state of Illinois would hire your local VSOs and then assign them to the communities.
So since we have 50 states and 4 territories, the model for each state could look a little different based on that state's desire and under that state's, commander-in-chief, which is their governor or their legislative body as to how they structure it. Do you see, and I ask you for both your experience, what do you see as the interaction today between the veterans at the local level, that person who went back to Virginia Beach or somewhere in Illinois or Michigan or wherever they went. Do you see them as being able to connect the dots? Maybe TAP didn't catch it all, because if you got 20-plus years in, you're going to look at life one way because you walk out the door with a pension. Okay, so you have now a little bit of income coming in so you could maybe pay your basic bills. When you walk out with less than 20, unless there's a disability, you don't have. You got zero cash coming in the door, and so now you have to figure out what you're going to do next. Go to work for somebody or start a business yourself. Any thoughts on how what this committee should know from a national level, because we represent all 50 states and the 4 territories? And anything you'd want to share with us in your challenges there?
Well, we certainly have very different backgrounds and experiences, and I definitely commend you for what you've overcome. In my experience, when I was making the decision to start a business, it was in a very different field, more into providing knowledge-based work and consulting with a focus on trying to help solve warfighting challenges that we struggled with when we were on active duty. And my challenges in dealing with how do we offer these capabilities to the government was the frustration with working through the regulations, the long lead time to work through acquisition processes, and dealing with a government that doesn't understand small business.
So government was part of the problem, not part of the solution?
Absolutely, and
Okay.
I honestly feel like we are in a battle every day with the government.
You couldn't have articulated it any better. That's a great way to end this. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Representative Ramirez.
Thank you, Chairman Bost. I think I echo the sentiment of my colleagues here and a lot of what you said here when we say that veterans are crucial to our local economies, both as employees and as owners of small businesses. I want to thank you for being here today, for both of you being here. I know it's also a sacrifice to leave home, leave the business, and then fly to DC with a schedule that's never really steady, and things could change. So just want to say thank you for being here. As I heard the testimony specifically from Mr. Maynard, you talked about the challenges of even starting your small business. And I think it is important for us to understand as elected officials just what are the kind of things that are necessary to make it easier for us to support our small businesses, particularly our veterans. So I have a couple questions specifically for you. You talked a little bit about the challenges when you were even beginning to open up your business. What would you say was the hardest part of starting the business?
Talking my wife into it would have been the hardest part. Second would be just trying to, I mean, we sell clothing, so we have to purchase the clothing first to wholesale it back and sell it back. So just coming up with the money, we started looking into grants, started looking into the websites, didn't come anywhere, so we turned to credit cards and we started purchasing stuff with credit cards. We're making our payments. We're not taking a paycheck. We're putting it back into our business. I'm going to continue working at nighttime until I can, but as right now, we're just going into debt to get us started. Yeah. So that's, I hate debt, so it's not a good word. It doesn't fit me. I like to have everything taken care of, and it's a heartache trying to make sure, not only if you're paying your employees, but also staying on top of the vendors to have the product to sell to move forward.
Well, and we know also when you put things on credit card, those credit cards don't wait, and that 19% APR is very real and accumulates. It's really unfortunate. As you think about, particularly as a veteran, what are the points you think of outreach and the places where you think veterans can access more assistance when thinking of entrepreneurship?
Well, Sorry.
Either of you can answer, actually.
If, there's a VA in every community, if we just had an office in there that could help veterans with questions or guide them to the correct area would be the greatest.
Yeah. What are other things, and maybe this is just to follow up in addition to your answer, you hear from members here, we anxiously want to figure out what are those impediments and how do we address them. What are other ways that you think members of Congress can be helping our 2.5 million veteran-owned businesses and the many to come?
Overwhelmingly, it's the complexity of regulatory requirements. The regulations are unknowable, and when you're very small and you're starting out, it is the biggest challenge. It's daunting. There are a lot of really excellent people at the Small Business Administration and in the acquisition process, in Apex accelerators and other small business assistance centers who try to help. But most of the time, in my experience, the Small Business Administration folks are spending more time enforcing compliance than they are actually trying to help us. And so it just becomes this giant time suck that is not actually returning value or providing us real assistance in moving forward to become more effective and grow our business.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything? No. Yeah, I want to just echo what you've heard from my colleagues here. We have a responsibility. You gave everything, you risked everything so that we could be here. And there's impact in PTSD and all the other challenges and family and housing and all the costs associated with it. Making sure that small businesses are able to thrive is a priority for us. And I want you to hear this, that for me, as I think about the connection of housing, economic development, small business, it all intersects. And so we have to do better. And I appreciate you explaining some of those specific ways to do that. I'm from the state of Illinois, the beautiful state of Illinois, so I'm just also thankful to see another Illinoisan with us here today. So thank you, Mr. Maynor, and also Mr. Giraldi, for your passion and for your dedication to serving our communities, particularly for you, serving Illinois. I yield back.
And I'm going to do just one follow-up question, and before we go into our closing, I need to ask both of you, when you left the service, what did you receive the TAP program? You see, I came from an era that they didn't have a TAP program. I tell everybody that my commanding officer tapped me on the shoulder and said, "See you later." That was it. So, and was it, what was your experience with TAP?
I did participate in a TAP program. I didn't know what I didn't know. I realize now in hindsight that that was wholly inadequate, and we help a lot of other veterans that are transitioning now, and so we stay in the pulse of the experience. Big shortcomings with any transition assistance now is when, as service members, when we enter the service, we train as a team, we go into combat as a team, but you transition alone, and you don't really have a network. We build throughout a career a huge network of service members, but that network looks backward. It doesn't look forward into business or nonprofits or whatever career field you want to move into, so you go into it alone. The transition assistance programs, when you walk out the door, they're done with you. There's no follow-up. There is no knowledge of how people performed, no additional assistance. No one's checking in with you 6 months down the road. And people don't understand the culture. So when they get their first opportunity maybe for a promotion, maybe a new opportunity at business, they don't really have mentors or anybody to help them. They're alone for the first time, trying to navigate it. And what's a shame about that is we leave those veterans kind of sort of out there on their own, but we're also losing an opportunity to capture that data, tell a greater story to a next generation of recruits. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had this database of success stories that we followed people through their transition, that we knew the new impact they were making, the new value they had created in their lives and the lives of others. And when somebody was being recruited, we could tell them that story, not just of what their military career was going to look like, but how it was going to launch them into the next phase of their life. But that's all lost because the institution, the military, doesn't look for the long-term return on investment.
I went through the Warrior Transition Unit and that Fort Carson, Colorado. Hired Heroes did a great job. They came in, helped me write a resume. like Comrade said. But there's a big transition difference of the job market in Colorado Springs to Murfreesboro, Illinois. Hire Heroes is not south of Chicago. There's no opportunities for the smaller communities. So it's great to get that training, but it needs to transfer to your local area too. I know we don't have any numbers in our area, but just because we don't have numbers doesn't mean the veterans in that area don't need help too. So if we could create some programs to help the smaller areas to transit after they move to the area, because like I said, the job market's a lot bigger difference in Phoenix or Denver or Chicago than it is in small town USA.
Okay, and I agree with you, and I'm going to tell you that we're trying desperately to add to the TAP program, but it is a battle between this committee and HASC because VA, you would think that they work well together, VA and DOD, but each one tries to protect their own turf, and TAP is the hardest part for us to, and if you've been through one TAP program, you've seen one TAP program. They're all different, and we've got to try to get uniformity in between them. But I want to thank you for being here as witnesses today, especially leaving your business, coming to Washington, D.C., flying across the country. Thank you for doing that. Our veterans contribute immensely to our society and the economy here in this United States. And we're grateful to the men and women who have served this country and are continuing to serve throughout their participation in adding to the economy. Now I ask unanimous consent that all members shall have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include any extraneous material. Hearing no objections, there's nobody here, so ordered. The hearing is now adjourned.